Chapter 561 Time to Disappear. In the original book, Luffy went to sea on his birthday, which is May 5, 1520 in the Sea Garden calendar. Later, I met Kirby, but it was after more than half a month of squatting in a wooden barrel and drifting at sea. After that, from the East China Sea to the Great Route, the Straw Hats gathered crew members all the way to solve the incident. Even if they moved in a straight line, it would take at least a month. Then enter the Great Route from Upside Down Mountain, and arrive at the Drum Country to get Ace's message, at least 10 days and a half months later. And 2 months before they got the notice, almost when Luffy had just set out to sea, Blackbeard attacked the Drum Country, and Valbo abandoned the people and fled for his life. Ace, who got this news, came to Drum Country in order to hunt down Blackbeard, and then asked someone to tell Luffy, who had entered the Great Route, that he would wait for Luffy in Alabasta for 10 days. Afterwards, they beat up Fikey Rockdoll in Alabasta, met Bellamy the hyena in Moku Town, killed the god of salted fish, Anilu on the empty island. Then, the plot developed when Ace was defeated by Blackbeard. He handed it over to the world government in exchange for the title of Chiwahai. Loya flew several laps on the Great Route and measured the distance himself. If the Mary is used as a means of transportation, this distance is enough for the Straw Hats to run for more than 2 months. And that's all. They are all calculated at the most ideal time, ignoring those small episodes in the middle. In other words, the arrest of Ace should not happen until the end of this year, and it will be in October at the earliest. Then the Straw Hats were taken away by Bao Kun, bears in Chambord for 2 years, and did not return to sea until 1522. Oh yes, at that time, another major event happened. That is, fight. A huge war between 100,000 Navy elites against the entire Whitebeard pirates. But now the problem is coming. At this moment, the time point is only the end of August, and that guy Luffy has just arrived in the Drum Country. If Ace has been arrested, why did the half-year period in the original book disappear? Is the life of a certain people in the evil film in seconds? Hey Loya, are you listening? Am I answering your question? Sengoku suddenly increased the volume, interrupting Loa's thoughts. Oh, this matter, I agree. When he came back to his senses, a smile appeared on the corner of Loya's mouth, then he quickly closed it, and said gloomily, but you have to send some smart people here, Marshal Sengoku, otherwise, they will make me angry, and I can't guarantee that they will be able to return alive. Humph, you don't have to worry about this. Sengoku snorted coldly, and suddenly heaved a sigh of relief. I'll let the person who carries out this mission bring you the stuff. Don't run around until then, or I won't be responsible if you can't find anyone. Hi, there's still so much nonsense, you. Nani, you little bastard. Click. Quickly hanging up the phone, Loya's expression suddenly became serious. If anything has been changed, and the connection between Blackbeard and Ace, then there is only one answer. Drum Country. Rubbing his temples, Loya whispered the name softly. Everyone has their own path. Chopper desires the sea, a bigger world to contact more people. And what Robin longs for is stability. This seemingly strong woman has a very fragile heart. So Loya didn't force Chopper to go with him, even though his favorite character was Tony the furry Tony Chopper. Even if things go as I expected, but I have only started to contact Elbaf now, it is estimated that the Navy will not announce Ace's public execution to the world in a short time. In addition, Elbaf's reputation is not very good. I believe Sengoku was mentally prepared. That is, there was still time. Quote. Raising his head suddenly, Loya smiled and said to Robin, who was dressing up beside the makeup table, Robin, do you like Winter Island? The movement of his hand paused slightly, and Robin thought about it carefully. I like Spring Island in the fall, but Winter Island in the summer. It seems that you can also visit it. The former Drum Country, now the Cherry Blossom Kingdom. Sakura is a temperate and subtropical tree species that likes sunshine and warm and humid climates. This place is obviously a winter island. The climate is cold and the sea breeze is rolling. There is no such tree as cherry blossoms at all. But it has to be named Sakura Kingdom. This makes the uninitiated people very curious, thinking that there is a miraculous cherry blossom forest on the island. But those who stay will understand the meaning of the word, cherry blossom, in the cherry blossom kingdom in a few days. Because every weekend night, the king on the high mountain castle of the kingdom would have his soldiers shoot artillery shells wrapped in pink yuhi powder into the sky. The fire of the cannonball illuminates the entire sky like day, and against the backdrop of the white snow, petals fall from the sky, like a huge cherry tree. The scene is very beautiful. It is because of this superb view that the Kingdom of Cherry Blossoms, which was only a few years after the founding of the country, is well known in the first half of the Great Route. In addition, they have recovered the essence of the magnetic drum country, which was once a big medical country. Whether it is tourists who simply come here to play or patients who want to treat diseases, it can be said that there is an endless stream. Over time, the current Sakura Kingdom has re-established its status in the world government's allied countries, and has entered a stage of rapid development. If Loya appeared here, he would never have seen that this small town with a lot of voices in front of him would be the bighorn town with 3 or 2 cats. In fact, he didn't recognize it. Sitting on the large back ridge after Loya's dragonization, Robin slowly pressed back the pages of the book that had been ruffled by the wind, raised his head and asked, "So, can you explain why you are turning back?" Just now, Loya, who was clearly all the way forward, suddenly made a 180 degrees turn. Fortunately, Robin was quick-witted and fixed himself on Loya's back with the flower fruit, so he was not thrown off. "Ah, sorry," suddenly found flying over. Flying over. Robin was stunned after hearing this, raised his wrist and glanced at the recording pointer, and said in surprise, "It really flew over." With his own direction to him, Loya can even fly his head, which has never happened in the past. Just as he was about to ask something, a bright light suddenly appeared on the horizon, attracting the eyes of the two of them. "It's so beautiful." It is now in the evening, and residents who have been busy all day have returned to their homes, either having dinner with their families, or having a drink with a few friends. But invariably, they all chose an open and spacious place where they could see the sky. Those patients are luckier. After all, the hospital took this into consideration when choosing the location. The windows of each ward face the mountain in the center of the island. In addition, those tourists who simply come to travel can only choose the overcrowded observation deck, or stand directly on the street with the wind whistling, looking up at the sky. Bang! A huge pink light curtain appeared in the sky with the firelight, and then turned into thousands of pink petals, fluttering in the sky. The entire Sakura Kingdom is reflected in a pink yuhi at this moment. Against the backdrop of the dreamlike lights in the small town at night, it is very beautiful. Even if Robin's aesthetics are somewhat unique, he is still deeply attracted by this wonderful beauty. Where is the drum country? That's right, but it's going to be called the Sakura Kingdom now. Loya explained. The last time I visited this island, it wasn't so lively. Well, it's quite lively. Robin leaned down and looked down curiously. Even though they were far apart, she could still hear the exclamations that sounded from time to time on the island. Every time a shell explodes, the beauty brought by it can make people unable to stop admiring. "Let's go and meet old friends," Loya said, folded his wings, bent down and rushed down. Chapter 562 etc. Roger invited you aboard. Far away from the island, Loya released his dragon transformation and landed in the corner of the castle with Robin in his arms. Otherwise, with his dragon-like body shape, he would definitely cast a shadow over the powder yuhi light curtain. He just came to see Chopper and made sure of something else, not to spark some doomsday rumors. Dalton first became a prisoner from the guard captain of the drum country, and maybe one day Valbo was in a bad mood and directly GG. Then, in those few days, he transformed himself again and became the captain of the kingdom guard of the island's new country, Sakura Kingdom. As the captain of the kingdom's guards, Dalton couldn't supervise such trivial matters as launching fireworks on weekends, so after the patrol was over, he returned to his residence in the castle, opened a book he bought, and turned on the lights to be quiet. Looking Don't look at Dalton's current captain as well. In fact, he still has an unknown dream. That is to become a boatman, build a big ship of your own, and see the vast world outside. But he is kind. He can't let go of the inhabitants of the Cherry Blossom Kingdom and those who trust him, so he would rather stay on this island for the rest of his life, and Dalton has never mentioned himself to anyone. Dream. Only in the dead of night, turning over those shipbuilding books, why about what kind of big ship he is going to build, is the best comfort for Dalton. The same is true today, as Dalton reads the book and thinks of the news published in the day's newspaper. It was a behemoth that was pitch black and inlaid with gold-rimmed blue patterns. The dragon totem on the bow and the dragon head cannon with an exaggerated caliber directly hit Dalton's drop point. Fortunately, he had been demanding himself all the time, and recovered quickly, so he didn't show any shameful expression beside the newsstand. I really want to go to the dragon ship to have a look. That kind of behemoth. I heard that the cost is more expensive than the naval warship. I really want to know what is inside it. Come here if you want, just report my name and just go up and see. Suddenly, a somewhat familiar voice sounded from behind Dalton. Who? Ah. He picked up the weapon from the table and turned around. Dalton, who was shouting angrily, had a stiff expression, the corners of his mouth twitched a few times, and he sat back down. It's easy to say. The Navy has issued a statement like that. How dare I run away from you? When Sengoku came back a few months ago, that statement spread to every corner of the sea. The Sakura Kingdom, which has been associated with Loya, even held a meeting to study it carefully. Later, there were many careerists who wanted to rely on Loya to make a career and tried to contact Turtle Island, but often before they found a way, the Navy went to the door to catch them all. Seeing this, Kurha resolutely gave up the idea of contacting Loya, and issued a notice to the whole country, prohibiting anyone from contacting Loya for any reason and in any way, and those who violate the order will be punished with treason. So Loya's words are completely hilarious. Regardless of whether Dalton can bear the consequences of contacting Loya, he will definitely not choose to do so. Will bring uncertain hidden dangers to the Sakura Kingdom. Then, why don't I send you one? Loya came up with another solution, and said with a smile, you just said that it was captured by you, and I promise not to tell anyone. Not even Chopper. This. To be honest, Dalton was a little moved at first. However, after careful consideration for a moment, he gave up the tempting idea. After all, I can seize the ship from your group of undead soldiers. We believe it, but who will believe it? And even if there is a dragon ship with no one there, it is estimated that few people have the courage to take it home. Well, that's true. Suddenly, Robin came out from behind Loya and glanced at the shipbuilding book that was not closed on the table. But if you really want to read it, why not just take a design drawing? This book is for those who have a certain foundation in shipbuilding. Since you can understand it, it is estimated that you can just read the design drawing. The brain makes up the appearance of the dragon boat. Great idea. Dalton shines. Compared with the dragon ship battleship, which occupies a huge area and is difficult to hide, how much is a set of design drawings? With Dalton's size, it is estimated that no one will notice it in the hidden clothes. Just as he was about to continue speaking, Dalton was sluggish for a second and asked suspiciously, may I ask who you are? Ah, this. It was Loya who answered Dalton. He took Robin in his arms and threw dog food on Dalton unceremoniously. This is my fiancée, Nicole Robin. Fiancée. Quote. Nicole Robin. In the king's banquet room, after listening to Dalton's introduction, Kuleha's hand moved slightly and said in surprise, that Nicole Robin from O'Hara. Hey, I'm the son of the devil. Hearing the words, O'Hara, Robin's mood was obviously a little depressed. Seeing this, Roha stood up very protectively, and said to Kurha with a bad expression. Hey, old lady, Robin is my fiancé, be careful what you say. Huh, are you asking me the secret to staying young forever? Sitting on the chair, Kurha put her feet on the table without any image, and gulps down the wine. Stop talking nonsense, and leave as soon as you have nothing to do. The Sakura Kingdom is not very stable, and I don't want to attract the attention of the Navy. HMPH, I won't come here if it's nothing. Loya sat down carelessly, looked left and right, and then looked up at a corner of the ceiling. Where's Chopper? I miss him. What else can I do if I don't sleep in the middle of the night? Forget it today. He is tired from playing with the group of pirates during the day. Let him get a good night's sleep. Kurha and Roha also raised their heads and looked at the corner, and then said to Roha, the pirates are different from the others, so don't hurt them. It's not that Clea doesn't trust Loya, it's that Loya's style is there, no matter who has the background, as long as they dare to enter the new world under the banner of pirates, the undead army will jump up and kill them like mad dogs. In addition, they now have the assistance of dragon boats, so it can be said that other than naval warships, ordinary pirates' ordinary sailboats really can't run. This is a great addition to their clearing work. Fortunately, after a little commotion during the day, those little guys got acquainted with Chopper. Seeing Chopper's face, Clea had the confidence to say this. Knowing who the other party is, Loya still pretended to be ignorant and asked curiously, playing with pirates. Can Chopper accept anyone other than Silk? Ah, yeah. With a smile called kindness on Kurha's face, she took a small sip from the bottle. A bunch of weird guys. Oh yes, the Straw Hat guy said something to Chopper today, the same thing that Roger the Kid said when he invited me on the boat. Oh, does he want Chopper to be his ship's doctor? Loya nodded, expressing understanding. Wait, Roger invited you aboard. That One Piece Roger. Robin and Dalton suddenly took a deep breath. Could it be that the old lady king in front of him was actually a member of the Roger Pirates? Chapter 563 Chopper's New Friend. Kurha has a relationship with Roger, and even said that he knew the secret of the D family, which was exposed in the early stage of the original book, so Loya knew it very well. But he didn't expect that Kurha actually got on Roger's boat. That's not right. Isn't the ship doctor of the Roger Pirates the same cloak as huddled in Twin Points? What does it have to do with you? Immediately, Loya asked his own question. HMPH, kid, when did that happen? The year of Haiyuan calendar is 1496, 24 years ago. Luoya spread his hands and said contemptuously, are you putting gold on your face? After all, I have never heard of it. There is a person like you on the ship of One Piece Roger. HMPH, ignorant brat. Kurha asked with a sneer, not irritated, then do you know when Roger went to sea? Now it was Loya's turn to be speechless. Indeed, Roger was 55 years old when he was executed, which is clearly recorded in both the original book and the information he found in the Navy, which was 1,500. That is to say, he can only be sure that during the 3-year voyage that Roger became the Pirate King, that is, during the period from 1496 to 1499 of the Sea Garden calendar, the ship doctor on his ship was undoubtedly Kuroka's. But even in 1496, Roger was already 51 years old. Before that, had he been squatting at home all the time? Obviously impossible. You must know that the Battle of Atwal, that shocked the world happened in 1495 when Roger was 50 years old. Before that, he found the current, Pluto, Rayleigh at a young age, threatening to turn the world upside down. So the question is, who was Roger's ship doctor before that? It is impossible to sail on a great and dangerous route without even a ship doctor, right? In other words, are you really Roger's former crew member? Loya suddenly had the same expression as Robin and Dalton, staring at Kurha in a daze. HMPH, little brat, don't you know that? Roger was just like that kid when he was young, and when he really came to the Great Route, he finally realized how dangerous it was here. It was only then that I finally remembered to seriously find a ship doctor. Loya's eyes made Clea very satisfied. After speaking, she snorted disdainfully, waved her hand and turned away. All that was left was the dumbfounded trio in the living room. It was night, in the guest room of the castle. While arranging the earrings, Robin said to Loya, I can't believe that in this small cherry blossom kingdom, there is actually a crew member of One Piece, Roger. After the dissolution of the Roger Pirates, what happened? How many people are still alive in this world? Indeed, that's also a problem. Sitting on the edge of the bed, Loya frowned. Don't look at him turning the world upside down now, but he can be sure that the group of Roger's old crew members must be watching secretly, watching him silently. Roger said, "I'm not going to die," to Riley before turning himself in, referring to a mission. The individual, Roger, who carried this mission died, but his spirit, the fate of the family, was still passed on. That's why he said that he would not die. If one day, they stand in their way, as Roger's crew, they really won't jump out to stop themselves. Or did they really have that kind of confidence in the guy who inherited Roger's legacy, that is, Straw Hat Luffy? Or maybe this is just a simple inheritance of will. If Luffy fails, he will definitely continue to inherit his will and re-enter the next cycle. It doesn't matter if he succeeds or not. Rayleigh, Shanks, Bucky, Kuroka's, Spark, Jabba, Sekar, Kazuki Odin, and the boss of Cat Viper, Duke Inuarashi, who has not reached the finish line, Drive. Kurha. There are so many people I know of, who knows how many people are still alive in the Roger Pirates. Ah, why are you looking at me like this? Feeling that the atmosphere was not right, Loya looked up and found that Robin was looking at him with a subtle look. It's as if the wife has found evidence of her husband's stealing, but she doesn't want to say it herself and wait for her husband to confess. Hearing this, Robin shook his head and continued to pack his earrings. No, it's nothing. I'm just curious, why do you know so much? Oh, this. Loya scratched the back of his head embarrassedly. Am I not a vice admiral? No matter how secret the information of the Roger Pirates is, you can know some details more or less. Oh, so. Wearing pajamas, Robin stood up and came to the bed to lift the quilt and prepare to sleep. Loya thought he was fooled, and was about to hug him shamelessly, but was directly covered his face by a hand that grew from the quilt. Go back to your room and sleep. No, that's true. Listen to my explanation. However, no matter how Loya begged, Robin sneered and pushed Loya out of the door. With a click, the room was locked tightly. And Dalton arranged this room for us. There's nothing else, okay. Looking around, Loya was about to cry without tears. 10 minutes later, Dalton opened the door, looked at Loya in pajamas outside, and asked with a vigilant look. What do you want? Looking at Dalton's expression that he would rather die than sell his color, Loya was speechless, and only spit out a word after a long time. Do it. The next day, a sunny morning. When Dalton woke up and found that Loya, who was sleeping on the top bunk, was gone, he quickly put on his clothes and ran out. Now it's no better than a quiet night. It would be better if Loya left in the middle of the night. After all, last night it was only late that he and Clea knew that Loya had come to the Sakura Kingdom. But in case someone else sees it and the matter is stabbed out, the Sakura Kingdom will not be able to clean it even if it wants to. Fortunately, Kurha met him as he raced down the castle corridors. Oh, Loya, he went out with Chopper early in the morning. Nani, Your Majesty, do you know that outsiders can't find him? Dalton was instantly shocked, and immediately made up the tragic situation that the Sakura Kingdom was hit by the Navy because of its connection with Loya. Seeing the look in his eyes, Clea knew what he was thinking. After taking a sip of wine, he said, Relax. Chopper is taking Loya to meet his new friend. You know that group of pirates will not be caught by the residents again. Hunted down, so I have been hiding in an inaccessible place on the other side of the snowy mountain. Is this so? Got it. Dalton breathed a sigh of relief, scratching his head, not knowing what to say. At the same time, the sled pulled by Chopper was running on the snow. It seemed that because of the cold wind, the two people on the sled both found hooded clothes, one blue and one pink. Standard couples outfits. However, the young Chopper still didn't understand what love was, so he couldn't eat the dog food that Loya threw wildly. He only felt very excited at the moment, because his two best friends are now on the island, and it is certainly a happy thing for Chopper to introduce them to each other. Hey, Loya, I'm telling you, that guy is a rubber man who ate a rubber fruit, and his hands are so fun that he can pull that long. Is that so? Then I really want to try it myself later. NLT. Chapter 564 Meet the Straw Hats Again. After all, the Sakura Kingdom is an East Island. In this snow-covered land, not every place is suitable for playing and living. For example, the coniferous forest on Danzo, the Straw Hat, is one of the dangerous areas strictly prohibited on the island. The danger here is not from the snowy mountains themselves, but from the animals that live here. Dangerous carnivorous rabbit Laban. Feeling much better after taking the potion, Nami sat on the deck of the Mary, basking in the sun after a long absence. What a nice weather. It would be nice to have a cup of strawberry ice cream at this time. Hi, I'll bring you Nami-san right away. Sure enough, after Nami finished saying those words, Sanji was leaning against the railing and immediately stared at Yuhi, writhing like an earthworm, and ran into the kitchen. In this regard, Zoro and Usopp have the same expression: this guy is helpless. However, your illness is not over yet, so eating ice cream will be fine, right? It was rare for Usopp to be serious, and he touched his chin and said, sure enough, I'll go to Chopper to check on you, in case anything happens. It's all right, I'm fine now. Before Usopp could finish speaking, Nami stuck out her tongue playfully, raised her arms and puffed out her biceps. Okay, you'll be fine. Usopp was also speechless. He glanced at Luffy, who was robbing a group of Labang for barbecue, and then looked up at the snow-capped mountains that were thousands of meters high in front of him. I really didn't expect that such a prosperous Sakura kingdom once had that kind of experience. If that guy named Valbo was seen by Luffy, he would have yelled and beat him up, right? It's not an estimate, but a certainty. Don't you know the character of our captain, Usopp? Zoro hit a hatch, waved his hand and walked to the cabin. He had a mess on the island yesterday. He was so tired that he slept for a long time today. He even missed the exercise. He had to hurry up and make up for the wasted time. Just add 500 more vertical cuts. That's true, just that guy Luffy. He dares to talk like that when he sees a big man like Ice Dragon, Loya. How could he still be afraid of a king? Hearing Usopp's self-talk, Zoro, who was putting his hand on the doorknob, and Nami, who was sunbathing on the deck, all stopped. Sanji, who didn't know what to do, walked out of the kitchen with the ice cream, and when he saw this scene, he asked, "What's wrong, everyone?" "No, it's nothing." Nami took the ice cream and said a little embarrassedly, "Speaking of which, Sanji, you still don't know about that, do you?" "What's the matter? I see you looking like a great enemy." "It's in Rogue Town, what the White Hunter said. We're killing ourselves. Before that. Gollum. Ice Dragon, Loya." Suddenly, Usopp exclaimed exaggeratedly. "Yes, that guy." Nami covered her forehead weakly, and explained to Sanji, that terrifying monster entrenched in the New World defeated the Big One of the Four Emperors, with his own power. Mom, pirates, they almost killed all the high-ranking naval officers. It's unreasonably strong. He has always been working on destroying pirates. When we met him before, we saw that Shanks, Luffy's benefactor, put us in the face. Result. In the end, because of Luffy's words in Rogue Town, the era of the great pirates, which had been gradually calmed down, boiled again. Zoro continued for Nami, who was trembling with fear, "This is absolutely touching. We have hit the bottom line of each other. If we meet next time, we are very likely to be killed by each other without any kindness to speak of." Quote. Ice Dragon, Loya. Sanji silently lit a cigarette, his eyebrows almost twisting together. "I heard old Zap say that the guy was known for his cruelty when he was a vice admiral. If it were him, it would be really troublesome." "It's not trouble, it's going to die. And that guy is right behind you guys." Usopp was crying without tears. He clearly cried out just now. Why didn't these guys seem to care? Nani? A group of people turned back immediately, and sure enough, they saw the face that only existed in newspapers and news. And, why are you in his hands, Luffy? The rest screamed Kiba. Ah, Chopper ran so fast that he almost hit me, when I came back to my senses. Nami, your illness is not over yet. Don't eat these cold things. Sorry Chopper, I can't help it. You can't help but endure it, and you don't want to die. Don't look at Chopper's usually weak appearance. When it comes to medical knowledge, his absolute strength is jaw-dropping. Just like now, as the invisible leader of the Straw Hats, Nami, who dares to fight anyone who disagrees, is scolded by Chopper and dare not talk back. This scene falls in the eyes of Usopp and Luffy, two people who are often beaten, that is called envy, jealousy and hate. Fortunately, they still have self-knowledge and know that they can't learn medicine. Otherwise, the Straw Hat Pirates will have to be renamed the Dr. Pirates. Today, Chopper came not only to introduce Loya to his new friend, but also to check on Nami. After all, the fatality rate of Caskia fever is 100%. If it wasn't for Kurha's excellent medical skills, Little Thief Cat would have to explain it here at a young age. While waiting for Chopper to check on Nami, Robin wandered on the boat, looking curiously at the pirate ship that was so small and unreasonably small. Compared with the pirate ships she has seen, the Straw Hat's Mary is really small. If you didn't see the pirate flag painted on the sail, no one would have thought that this was a pirate ship, right? Of course, no one dared to have an opinion when she did this, not to mention that Roha was there. Just looking at Robin's own bounty of 709 million is enough to make the entire Straw Hats timid. In addition, after all, there is a species called Sanji there. Robin's visit can be described as enjoying the king-level treatment. The rest of the people have something to do, so Loya is not in a hurry and sits on the shore to fish with Luffy. The fish in Winter Island are very smooth and tender because of their high activity. In addition, yesterday's commotion caused Luffy and the others to be hated by the residents. Therefore, the Straw Hats can only use local materials and cannot go to the town to supply them. While fishing, Loya tilted his head and asked Zoro, who had been staring at him, "What's wrong? Why are you looking at me like this?" "No, don't mind." Leaning against the tree trunk, Zoro, who was sitting cross-legged on the snow, said to Loya, "Shanks, is it the Shanks who fought with Hawkeye in Upside Down Mountain?" "Ah, yeah, Luffy should have told you guys. Why did you ask me this?" Loya Hidehashi and wiped the mucus from the corner of his eyes. There is nothing to enjoy in Dalton's ascetic room, and Loya, who has not slept on a hard bed for a long time, has not slept well all night. "I just have a question to ask you. After all, if it's a big man like you, the answer you get is credible." Speaking of this, Zoro's eyes, which were half covered by the green hood, gleamed fiercely, like some kind of bloodthirsty beast. "How big is Mahawkeye now?" Gap. In fact, when Loya noticed the turban on Zoro's head, he knew what this guy was thinking. After all, the legendary Suoda was not serious and would not put on a headscarf. Well, this, Luoya thought hard, frowned and said, "Because the gap is too big, I really can't find a suitable example to describe it for a while. Otherwise, you will go to my head. Slash it." Clang. The sharp blade was unsheathed, and an invisible murderous intention suddenly emerged. "Oh, interesting. Then I'll be more respectful than obedient." NLT. Chapter 565 Chopper gets on board. Little by little, Luffy, who was about to fall asleep, was suddenly awakened by a murderous aura. He raised his head and looked around blankly, glanced at Usopp, who was speechless in fear, and finally found Zoro, who was holding a samurai sword not far away. "Hey Zoro, what are you doing?" "Of course I'm testing my weight." Zoro bit Shui Zuo into his mouth, holding the word Hidao in his left hand and Sandai Gido in his right, then crossed his hands and brought the three knives closer together. "As the current me, and the me when I first went to sea, have you grown up?" This starting move, Ghost Slash. No, it should be a move developed later in the Ghost/series. Feeling the gradually condensed breath in the air, Loya felt a little emotional. What to say? Is the protagonist group worthy of the protagonist group? Obviously, he has changed so much, and it stands to reason that the Straw Hats should not encounter many enemies along the way. That is to say, there are not many opponents to use for them to level up, and they will be weaker than the original work at the same time if they don't get much training. But looking at the current Sauron, this momentum is not far from Janao. That Mr. One, who was severely injured by himself 2 years ago, could not possibly be the opponent of this Zorro. It is true that he has not yet grasped the profound meaning of the swordsman's iron slashing, but his current arm strength and the Grandmaster level of this derivative skill of ghost slashing are enough for him to achieve the same effect as the iron slashing, profound meaning. It is even said that this kind of Zontai, who can defeat 10 guilds with one force, is stronger than ordinary swordsmen who have understood the profound meaning of Tai Zon, in terms of destructive power. At this time, Zorro was finally ready to move. I saw his foot kick, and he launched himself like a cannonball. At the same time, the 3 sharp blades tilted slightly, slashing towards Loya's head from 3 different angles. 3 swords style profound truth, Ghost Chi, Shira Ghost Slash. Have you touched the 9-knife flow area? I really am not the only genius. Sigh. Ding. Luffy, who was sitting beside Loya, only felt a sharp blade flash across his eyes, but before he could react, the blade came and went quickly, and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Just like the weather on the Great Route, it was stormy and rainy one moment, but calm the next second. It's just that on the head of Loya sitting next to him, there are 3 more sharp blades that are placed together. Zorro's arm was numb, and the blood flowed from the shock of the tiger's mouth. He raised his head, bit the snow in his mouth and walked away. The gap, can it be that big? I don't dare to rely on the ice armor on my body to pick up Mahawk's slash like this, after all, for that guy. The fish float trembled, and Loya quickly lifted it up from the hook. Take down a plump white-bellied fish. Cut off the snow-capped mountains behind me, it's probably just a little trouble. That snow mountain that is several kilometers high and only one size smaller in diameter than this island. After finishing speaking, without waiting for Zorro to say anything, Roha spread his wings and flew to the side of the Mary. Licking his face like a dog's leg, he raised the fish in his hand. Wife, I caught the fish you said last night was delicious. On the shore, Luffy poked the motionless Zorro with his finger. Hey, why are you slashing Uncle with a knife? Scare me. Ignoring Luffy's weirdness, Zorro dragged his sore hand back into the scabbard little by little. When taking off the snow in his mouth, a triangular piece of debris fell off the blade, mixed into the snow and disappeared immediately. Looking up at Loya who was flattering to Robin over there, Zorro took a deep breath. Luffy, we have to get stronger. Great roots, diseases and storms are not the most dangerous things. Oh, I see. What, so you guys have known each other for a long time? Sitting around the campfire, Chopper said with juice. Because of someone's relationship, the Straw Hats who were scheduled to eat on the boat were forced to move to the snow. Beside Chopper, Loya held a juice bucket of the same style as Chopper and said while sucking, "You didn't tell me in advance, as long as you mention a Straw Hat, I will know who he is." After finishing speaking, Loya glanced at Chopper who was smiling, raised his head and said to Luffy, "Hey kid. What's the matter, Uncle? I heard you want Chopper to get on your boat." Hearing this sentence, the rest of the people stopped talking. Just like what Nami was worried about before, because of Luffy's relationship, the pirates in this world have become active again, and Roha must hate them. They didn't kill them on the spot, presumably because of Chopper's face. After all, looking at Chopper's attitude towards Loya, the relationship between the two is very good, and Loya will not kill them to make Chopper sad. But now they actually want to pull Chopper aboard and become a pirate together. For Loya, maybe, it's even more intolerable. Right. Immediately, The timid duo hurriedly used their eyes to signal Luffy to speak carefully, not to anger the monster in front of him. Then, yeah, Chopper is very interesting, isn't he? We just don't have a ship doctor on board. It's over, it's over. Not only Nami and Usopp, but also Sanji and Zoro thought so, and secretly prepared to attack. But they heard Loya say. Did he take him on board because he was funny? The ship doctor was just incidental. Well, that's right. I think our trip would have been fun with Chopper. Right, Chopper. Yes, but... Chopper seemed very hesitant, not just because of Loya. Seeing this, Loya said something unexpected. Then go Chopper. Chaoba suddenly looked shocked, and there was a little surprise of being supported. However, he quickly restrained his expression and sipped the juice in small mouthfuls. But, I still have a lot of things to learn. And if I leave, Dr. Dory will be lonely, right? And, you think you're a monster and don't deserve to be everyone's companion. Loya. Chopper raised his head sadly, not knowing why Loya would say that to him. But just for a second, Chopper immediately spit out the juice in his mouth, looking blue at the real monster head in front of him. Wearing a dragon head, Loya opened his hideous mouth and pointed his finger on Chopper's chest. The factor that distinguishes monsters is not only appearance, but also here. You have the kindest and purest your heart, even if it looks like this is not a reindeer or a human, but your heart is definitely not a monster. And, turning back to his own face, Loya embraced Robin and said with a smug smile, what if it's a monster? What is there to be inferior to? As long as there are companions who can accept him, that's fine. Like me, with such a beautiful wife. Envy, jealous. Damn, Robin-chan. Sanji bit his sleeves and looked at Robin with tears in his eyes and gave Roha a white glance. Or, have you forgotten everything Silk taught you? In the end, Loya said so. Swish. Chopper immediately raised his head, his face was firm. I see, Loya. Seeing this, Loya nodded in satisfaction. The rest of the people also looked at Chopper with a look of joy, and were really happy for his joining. However, Roha suddenly narrowed his eyes, glanced at the uneven number of straw hats, and said to Luffy if he had something to say. Speaking of which, Luffy, I heard that you did a big thing in Rog Town that made a big splash in the world. Over. It's still getting cold. Chapter 566 agreed. Target New World. I hadn't seen Loya mention this before, and the rest thought they were just fooled. Unexpectedly, Loya, who can nod even about Chopper, will bring it up again later. Sure enough, from the beginning, weren't you ready to let us go? Just when a group of people were in a state of great emotion, Luffy blinked blankly, looked at Loya and said. Huh, what's the matter? Loya. PFF'd. Robin couldn't help but covered his mouth and laughed, and then the laughter got louder and louder, and finally he laughed until his stomach hurt, but he bent down and continued to laugh. Ha, ha ha ha. Laughter is contagious, and even if he knew that it was not the time to laugh, Usopp was distracted by Robin and laughed in a low voice. Then, one by one, the straw hats sitting around the fire all laughed, even Chopper. The only two guys who didn't laugh, except for Luffy who was still dazed, was the black and blue Loya. That, Uncle, what are they laughing at? Ghost knows. Go eat your grilled fish. Oh, then I'm welcome. Seeing that Luffy took his own grilled fish and nodded without hesitation, Roha finally knew what it means to drop one thing into another. I am used to intrigue with various forces, and live in the conspiracy calculation and the transfer of interests. Whether it is a smart person, you have your own flaws. But when you really meet an idiot, you'll know what it's like. It hurts. Because this guy doesn't know anything at all. Do you think you held his handle? Ha ha. In fact, he forgot what he had done. In the end, Loya had to comfort himself. After all, it was that straw hat boy Luffy. A very dangerous topic was revealed in a burst of laughter. Chopper, who made up his mind, quickly got acquainted with the straw hats, and danced with Usopp and Luffy with chopsticks in their nostrils. The rest of the guys were roaring with wine glasses, and their cheerful laughter could be heard all over the coast. Speaking of Luffy, where are you going next? After 3 rounds of drinking, Loya asked a question unintentionally. Luffy, who ate and drank to replenish his strength during the intermission, raised his head and glanced at Nami. I don't know about this either, we have to ask our navigators. This. Seeing the eyes of the two looking at herself, Nami raised her wrist and looked at the recording pointer, and said, I heard from the residents before that when the records here are full, it will point to the Desert Kingdom, Alabasta. If nothing else happens, if so, our next destination should be there. At this point, Nami asked carefully, Lord Loya, why are you asking this? It's nothing, just estimate the time of your death. Loya waved his hand very calmly, as if to say something trivial about what to eat this morning. Gollum. As soon as the words came out, everyone immediately fell silent. Even the most carefree Luffy looked at Loya in surprise, not understanding what he meant by this. Not caring about the reaction of the group of people at all, Loya calmly sprinkled the grilled fish with seasoning, then turned over and waited for the taste. I will not allow anyone to become the Pirate King. After all, the existence of pirates is harmful to this world. That's why I docked Turtle Island at the entrance of the New World, and let the undead army destroy everyone who entered the New World. Pirates of the world. I know your character very well, but apart from you, there are more pirates who make a living by looting and create tragedies on the sea. If a new One Piece appears at this moment, I have been in the past for so many years. Wouldn't the effort be in vain? The fish was very fat, and as soon as it was grilled by the fire, a drop of oil dripped down the bonfire along the fish that had turned upside down on its belly, with a crackling sound and a small cluster of sparks. I'm not trying to stop you from pursuing your dreams, Luffy. But the situation is that your dreams are standing in the way of my dream of praying for peace. So even if it's not for myself, I won't let it go. You go after, 1PLECE. Speaking of this, the corner of Loya's mouth evoked a small smile. The new world is your endpoint and grave. So before that, enjoy your journey. Because every minute and every second of this time is the countdown to your life. Quote. Silence. Whether it was Luffy or Zoro, Chopper or Robin, everyone was silent. Rebut. Impossible, because the other party is telling the truth. In this sea, there are so many vicious people who burn, kill and loot. But face it. With the world-famous Ice Dragon, Loya as an enemy, the hope is even slimmer. For a time, no matter who it is, there is a sad feeling in my heart. The dream that he and others pursued was sentenced to death, and he couldn't resist. This feeling was not so pleasant. Nami looked at the back in front of her and whispered, Luffy. Hey, uncle, I want to ask you a question too. Oh, you said. Putting his hand on the straw hat, Luffy grinned and asked with a smile, if you knew that tomorrow was your day of death, would you give up everything you've done now? This kid. Loya narrowed his eyes, and a dangerous breath spread out. Everyone has a feeling of being stared at by some beast, and their backs are shivering. But Luffy looked at him without fear, waiting for his answer. After a long time, the breath suddenly dissipated, causing the others to take a few exaggerated breaths. Shrugging, Loya replied with a smile, of course. Impossible. Ah, isn't it? I think so too. Luffy let go and raised his head with a smile full of sunshine. It doesn't matter how strong the enemy is or when he will die. As long as I am alive, I will never give up my dream of becoming the Pirate King. And even if I die, I'm going to die chasing my dreams. Because you don't want to leave any regrets. No, Luffy denied Loya's guess and said with a smile, because it's interesting. Ha ha ha, ha 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 ha, so it is, so it is. Suddenly, Loya looked up to the sky and laughed wildly. Ultimate, dragon power radiates out unabashedly, and the whole island is shrouded in terrifying dragon power. Whether it's a Laban or a hiking bear, a wild reindeer or a domestic pet, the animals are huddled in corners one by one, trembling all over. If someone approached, whether it was his master or not, he would grin at Kobo with a fierce look. At this moment, Loya is like a demon king who brings doomsday. Just standing there makes people unable to resist any thoughts. Swish! Two wide dragon wings extended from behind Loya, shrouding the Straw Hat group in a huge shadow. On the open wings, hard scales are clearly visible. Staring at a pair of golden vertical pupils, Loya suddenly stopped laughing, and the dragons might also disappeared. I'll be waiting for you in the new world. Monkey D. Luffy. Ah, wait, I will definitely beat you up. Become the Pirate King. Chapter 567. The Foreshadowing buried in Fujitora. On the way back to Turtle Island, Robin asked, "So, how is the thing you want to be sure about?" In addition to seeing the furry little guy, Loya has a more important purpose in this trip. Robin didn't know what that was, but it was worth a special trip to Loya, which was undoubtedly very important. But in the past 2 days, she didn't notice anything unusual about Loya. Even when she met with the Straw Hats, she was still talking about things that were taken for granted. So, did he forget? Robin didn't believe this guess at first. "Oh, that matter has been confirmed," Loya said while flying. "Next, we will go to Elbaf and see what tricks the Navy is going to play." "Then you'd better hurry up. Ulysses called me at noon this morning, saying the Navy would be arriving in the morning." Since Loya didn't want to say it, Robin was smart not to ask. Anyway, everything he did revolves around the purpose of world peace. And, no matter what it is, as long as you support him, isn't that enough? "Then hurry up, I'm going to speed up." As a reminder, Loya accelerated and galloped on the great route. In the evening, the two finally returned to Turtle Island. Looking at the 3 acquaintances in front of the team leader, Loya pointedly said, "It turns out that your old man led the team in person. Marshal Sengoku really doesn't respect the old and love the young at all." Hearing this, Lieutenant General Crane glanced at Loya indifferently, and said, "I'm just accompanying the team as a staff officer, and the leader is the general next to me, Pulsolino." As if he had just seen him, Loya enthusiastically reached out and shook hands with Kizaru. "Oh yes. Look at my memory. Long time no see, General Kizaru." Feeling a squeak from the bones of his hand, Kizaru wanted to cry without tears, and nodded with a forced smile. "Yes, long time no see, Loya. It's too late today. It's not a day or two to go to Elbaf anyway. Let's go tomorrow." After dinner, Lieutenant General Crane said this, and then reminded the admirals behind him, "Stay on this island full of dead people, and you should be careful when you sleep." "Don't worry, Lieutenant General Crane, the dead man-eating man is made up in a supernatural story." It was Loya who spoke, and while picking Kiba, he said condescendingly, "The guys in my place are all rational undead soldiers. Not the monsters in horror stories." After speaking, Loya looked at the strong old man who was sitting quietly eating noodles for a while, and took out a sieve cup. "But it's probably too early to go to bed now, Lieutenant General Fujitora. Do you want to play with both hands?" "No, this is." Fujitora looked at Lieutenant General Crane's position with a pair of blind eyes, and when the other party nodded, he put down the bowl and chopsticks very happily. "Then let's play 2 small games. I haven't touched the sieve for a long time." "So what do you care about with so many regulations? Look at me, who can control me at that time, and it's not as good as it is." Ignoring the dark-faced and oily Lieutenant General Crane, Loya continued, "You know that there should be a secret gambling association in the Navy now, right? To tell you the truth, that's what I led." "Nani, we still have this kind of organization?" Suru Zongjan stood up in shock, and then looked at Fujitora as if he was aware of it. Hemp egg. Everyone knows about Fujitora's love of gambling. If there is such an association, it will definitely come to the door immediately. No wonder Fujitora has never gambled money in front of them in the past few months, and Lieutenant General Suru thought he had changed his mind, and it turned out that the co-author bet all behind his back. "No, I haven't heard of it." Fujitora seriously denied Loya's statement, rolled up his sleeves and said, let's start as soon as possible. I want to win tonight. Loya, understood. Let's get started. Lieutenant General Crane. Hey, do you think I'm old so stupid? Glancing at Loya angrily, General Crane turned around and left after saying, don't forget the mission. Seeing how she was pulling out the phone as she walked, it was estimated that she had reported to Sengoku. In this regard, Loya shrugged indifferently. Know what? With the means of the foxes of the Weston family, they can exist under your eyes for so long, how can there be no corresponding backup? Even if you work hard, the final result is estimated to be a few scapegoats. But then again, the profit of opening a casino is really huge. Loya, who has only a small amount of Yuhi's rights, has scored more than 100 million Yuhi each time in the past few years. I just don't know how much of the 100 million Bailey's last quarter was contributed by the current Lieutenant General Fujitora. The two of them were playing a simple game of guessing the size and odds and evens. Huang Yuan sat aside and watched it for a long time. He didn't think anything was wrong, so he got up and left and went to sleep. In addition, he and Loya have a lot of origins. Staying here always feels like a gloomy wind, and it is better to go back to the room to rest. After he left, the two continued to play for half the night, until the bell rang in the early morning, and Loya put down the sieve cup. Upon seeing this, Fujitora knew that he had something to say, and also put down the chips in his hand. Lieutenant General Fujitora, I wonder what you think of the current situation at sea. I'm a blind man, what's your opinion? If Mr. Loya is going to win me over, please don't give up this idea. This answer was not expected by Loya. The old man in front of him followed benevolence and justice. In addition to benevolence and justice, the more important thing was justice. This can be seen from his ability to become a general in the original book. As Drake said, the key to becoming a general is that unwavering stance. Today's Loya is not the incarnation of justice. His act of clearing the pirates now allows Fujitora to relax and gamble with him, but it is still far from being a refugee. However, Loya didn't have this idea in mind. It's said that blind people can't see things. In fact, I think Lieutenant General Fujitora can see better than those who are not blind. Mr. Loya just make me smile. After all, in terms of seniority, you are still my senior. Your current status is not comparable to that of a small lieutenant general. Okay, La Sang. Loya said, I'll tell you some things. Justice is a collective name, and it has never been a single force. If you are blind, then use your heart. Go and see if the Navy is doing justice after all. After all. The one who started the war is the meat grinder that drags countless living people into the battlefield. Whatever the reason, whatever the purpose, it is not the embodiment of justice. Suddenly, Fujitora's expression was silent, and he frowned and asked, what does Mr. Loya mean? You'll understand, in the near future. But if there is a war ahead of you, I hope Mr. Fujitora will remember his oath to fight for justice and for those in need. Fight. Chapter 568 set off. News from a New World. When Sakura Kingdom saw Luffy, Roha seemed to deliberately threateningly asked him, where is your next stop? In fact, his real purpose was to test whether Luffy had received Ace's message. When Luffy set off for the Great Route, just as Drago would take time out of his busy schedule to witness it with his own eyes, Ace must have received the news. That's why Ace in the original book left a message in Drum Country, saying that he would wait for Luffy in Alabasta for 10 days. While chasing Blackbeard, I saw myself, the younger brother who was clamoring to become the Pirate King. ASL brothers, after Sabo was dead, in order to set a good example for Luffy, the stubborn Ace could even ask Makino to teach himself etiquette and become polite and humble. Although he didn't change his weird habit of eating Bawang's meal, the later Ace was indeed very different from when he was a child. This is all for Luffy, for his unrelated brother. So Luffy enters the Great Route. Ace will definitely find an opportunity to meet with Luffy to see if he is doing well, and fulfill his responsibilities as a big brother. However, Luffy's answer was that he didn't know, and he even said that he would ask Nami, the navigator. So it is conceivable that he has not received Ace's message yet. Is it because he changed the plot that Ace still left a message to Luffy later? Compared with this kind of coincidence, and the fact that the Navy must go to Elbaf with him, Loya is more willing to believe that Ace is indeed arrested. What he said to Fujitora tonight was just an opportunity. Regardless of whether Fujitora told Suru what he said, the attitude he wanted to show was seen by Fujitora. If the top war really starts, Fujitora will definitely do something unusual. That's enough. A guy with the strength of a general, even if it is a big scene like a war, can still control the situation to a certain extent. And choosing Fujitora is not the reason to contact Aoji, it is naturally because the two have different views on justice. Aokiji's lazy justice will make him neither agree with nor object to the justice of others. Even if he knows the wrong is the Navy, he will not stop it, just like the Akainu shelling escaped in the O'Hara incident. The same as the boat. If the person present at the time was Fujitora, he would never allow Akainu to do that. For Fujitora, justice, without benevolence and righteousness, is not justice. The backhand has been buried, and the next moment is verification. Saying goodbye to Fujitora with a smile, Roha turned around and threw the sieves into the sky, but let them roll on the ground. The vase by the steps blocked the first sieve, and the top side was 5 black circular dimples. The other one rolled directly into the grass. Fortunately, Loya's dynamic vision was strong, so that the sieve was not lost. Looking at the numbers on it, Loya murmured in a low voice, 5 to 5. In the early morning, before the undead soldiers routinely boarded the ship to patrol the sea, Loya was awakened by a knock on the door. He turned his head and looked out the window. The sky was gray and no sunlight could be seen. Is it cloudy? It's not a good sign to go to sea in this weather. Dong dong dong. Lord Loya, Vice Admiral Crane of the Navy is ready to set off. I know, get up now. After the simple washing, Loya walked out of the door in the name of Heish, and inadvertently glanced at the clock in the corridor, and the whole person stopped for a while. As the clock broken, it's only 5:30. Probably. No. Ulysses held his noble air whenever and wherever, raised his forehead slightly, and took out a pocket watch from his arms. Take a look. It's indeed 5:30 in the morning, you see. It's still dark outside. Loya, the damn old woman. By the way, Lord Loya, the Navy dispatched 5 warships this time. Do we want to? It doesn't seem necessary to. Got it. After breakfast and coming to the coast, Lieutenant General Crane looked at Loya with disgust. It's not time for the Navy. Have you slackened even the most basic self-requirements? I really don't know how your strength came from. Quote. Hi, it's enough to beat your group anyway. Loya flipped Byakugan and hit a Heish, a sentence that blocked what Admiral Crane was going to say next. However, Crane is worthy of being the General Staff of the Navy headquarters. If one fails, another plan is made. She glanced at the huge dragon boat parked next to the warship, and asked Loya with a strange smile, are you going to go by boat? Your seasickness has been cured. Already. Stupid. Damn old woman. Luoya took a deep breath and waved his hand pretending to be calm. I'm a rich family, even if I can take a commander on the back of the ice wolf, my wife can't. That way I will feel distressed. Then he squinted at the 3 in front of him, and said suddenly, oh yes. I almost forgot that you have no partner. That should not understand what I mean. Sorry. Tisk. That stinky bastard. Admiral Crane looked at Roha with an unkind look, and there seemed to be sparks colliding in the air. Also, it's really nice weather. Fujitora, right? Oh, yes, Tenten is really good today. Kasaragi and Fujitora were talking and looked up at the sky together. As for Fujitora being blind, don't worry about such trivial matters as the sun hasn't risen yet. The two outsiders, the Navy and Loya, who have a disagreement in the eyes of the hostile forces that are about to play a dog's brain, appear at the same time, and it will definitely cause trouble. Therefore, the Navy warships took the first step and went to sea half a day earlier. With the phone bug and several undead being carried by the other party, Loya is not afraid of losing his direction, but because of this, he feels very depressed. Obviously I waited for someone to leave at noon, so why did you wake me up early in the morning? Seeing Loya lying on the back of the ice wolf with a depressed face and falling asleep, Robin on the dragon boat laughed and read leisurely with a book in his hand. Behind her, Ulysses, old butler, nodded while talking on the phone bug, and asked the soldier to prepare juice for Robin. After a while he put down his hand, looked at Loya who was sleeping, and then turned his attention to Robin. Master Robin, I just received a message, you see. Loya got up very angry, so Ulysses didn't dare to disturb Loya who was in a very bad mood at the moment. Well, then tell me first. I'll just tell him later. Yes, it is so. After whispering a few words in a low voice, a shocked look appeared on Robin's face. This is a big deal. But, Ulysses shook his head with a wry smile. Lord Loya said that Whitebeard and Uhifa would never go to war. So is this news important? I don't know either. Chapter 569 Who is the prey? Then let him directly judge. Robin looked like a mistress, and Ulysses could only nod with a wry smile. Then I watched Robin smash the book at Loya unceremoniously, with a dwang sound on his head. Snapped. Reaching out his hand to catch the book, Roha rubbed his head and got up, stunned for 2 seconds, then turned his head and asked. What happened, Robin? Just received news that Yuhi is going to meet Whitebeard. Oh, I thought what was going on. Loya muttered, turned over and lay back again. That guy and Whitebeard have long been in touch, but they can't fight anyway, so let them go. Well. But the beast pirates also appeared in Whitebeard's realm, so I'm afraid it's going to start a fight, right? Nani, how many guys? Loya stood up suddenly and looked at them in disbelief. Is this news certain? They really appeared in Whitebeard's field at the same time. That's right, its messages sent in less than a few minutes one after the other. It was Ulysses who answered Loya, and even said that the phone bug in his hand had not hung up. On the other end of the phone bug, the undead soldier was still shouting nervously. Repeat, the beast pirates have appeared in Whitebeard's field. The target is directly at the Whitebeard's Moby Dick. Have you seen Guy's flagship? Loya frowned and asked. Ulysses quickly asked the question to the intelligence officer over there. I haven't found Guy's flagship for the time being. This time it is one of the 2 disasters of the beast pirates, Flood Calamity Gold. Only his flagship and accompanying ships have been found. Continue to monitor. Keep your distance. Report anything immediately. Yes, this subordinate understands. Hanging up the phone, Ulysses looked at Loya. The little devil with Whitebeard is very strong, and he is the strongest in the world that leads this era. Could it be that Yuhi has joined forces with the beasts to deal with him together? With Ulysses' qualifications, he does have the capital to call Whitebeard a little devil. But for his guess, Loya directly gave a negative answer. Impossible. Yuhi will never fight against Whitebeard if he fights against me. Frowning his brows, Loya thought for a while and said, notify Jones and K. Rockdale, and pay close attention to the movements of the Navy. In addition, send me additional personnel, and I will continue to report first-hand battles. Battle report. Ulysses froze for a moment. Are you sure they will fight? That's right. Loya nodded, feeling his fists start to itch. Having been dormant for 2 years, is Guy finally coming out to play? In this world, in addition to the hidden powerhouses that may exist, there is only one more Guy left in the world who can compete with Roha. In the first battle in Alabasta, Loya experienced the horror of Guy's body. Karp was also considered one when he was young, but now that he is old, even if he used banned drugs to boost his physical strength, he was still not his opponent. However, why did Guy's target choose Whitebeard? And only dispatched a flood? Didn't he think that the old Whitebeard who was hanging a bottle could solve it with just one double disaster under his own hands? And more questionable, why now? Now the Navy has not announced the news of Ace's arrest. If it is just to pick up leaks like the original, where does Guy's information come from? And if Guy didn't know much about this, why did he take action against Whitebeard? After thinking about it for a while, Loya raised his head thoughtfully and said to Ulysses, "You disguise yourself and go back sneakily, and don't let anyone know. Not even Rock Doll." Huh. Ulysses nodded inexplicably. Although he was puzzled, this was Loya's order, and he only needed to be responsible for implementing it. I hope my guess is wrong. Really, troublesome. A day later, in the New World, in the Whitebeard field. A gigantic euchromatic dragon ship ran rampant, smashing the ships that wanted to stop it along the way to pieces. The huge steel ramming horns shone with the unique luster of metal, stained with the blood of the enemy, and hung on the stumps of the friendly troops. No one would have imagined that the battle would be so intense. The flood calamity Jin under the Beast Guy duo has not been seen for several years, and the strength and power of his subordinates have developed so much. I thought that I didn't need to shoot at all, and my deterrence alone could make the other party retreat with interest, but what Shanks didn't expect was that the other party launched an attack on them. And how come there are so many fruit-capable people? As far as the eye can see, the people who are jumping forward and swarming in the Mukuro of the boats on the sea are all those with strange-looking animal-type fruit abilities. And among them, there are not a few people with the ability of fruit awakening. Uhifa pirates are indeed strong, but they didn't come to fight Whitebeard this time, so only Shanks Redfirth was present. And the number of each other. How to say there are tens of thousands, right? Among them, the ability can only be calculated in thousands. Boom, boom. A shell penetrated the defense net of a group of people and smashed into the cabin of the Redfirth. Ignoring his subordinates hurriedly running down the deck to repair, Shanks grabbed Griffin with one hand and took a step forward and slashed out. Suddenly, the world changed color. A sword chi that was incomparable to Hiroshi suddenly shot out, and along the way, whether it was a ship, a living person, or even the sea, it was divided into two halves by this sword chi. However, Shanks' attack could only protect one direction of Red Falls, while the enemy's attack came from all directions. Just as he cut through the sea, several people who were good at jumping jumped up from the other direction of the ship. Death, Shanks. Bang bang bang. A series of 3 blood flowers bloomed on the opponent's body, between the eyebrows, the throat, and the heart. Hitting these 3 vital points, even the awakened of the animal system will die instantly. What are you talking about, Captain? Is it better to retreat now? Jesus Cloth put away the long spear, took out the musket from the back of his waist, and killed an enemy who boarded the boat again. They don't have to worry about being killed by the other party, but now that the enemy is outnumbered, if the battle continues, the ordinary crew on the Redford will definitely suffer heavy damage. Now is not the time to talk about retreat, Jesus. The person who answered him was the vice captain of the Uhifa pirates, Ben Beckman. What do you mean? Because the opponent is the flood disaster, Gold. The commander who dispatched troops will be like a flood, drowning the enemy. The naval battles he commanded and participated in have never had a precedent for letting his opponents leave. He even said. Beckman spit out a smoke ring, pulled out his saber and chopped the goatman in front of him in two. Jesus you didn't hear clearly just now, and after finishing his work, he quickly asked, what did you even say? It's even said that in the 136 naval battles he commanded, big and small, that guy has never lost. Including the times before us. That's right, that guy Jin, either forbearance or death. In terms of threat level, it is the top among all the cadres under the 4 emperors. With a cold face, Jesus bu roared at Shanks Tip Kiba, is this the time to praise the opponent? I don't want to be the record of the guy who hasn't shown up until now. What, don't worry. Shanks suddenly looked at him with disgust and waved his hand, I won't die here. But since he dares to attack the Red Firth, then his undefeated record will probably be lost. Broken. After finishing speaking, Shanks took out the phone bug and dialed it. Hello, Marco, where are you guys? The fish has been caught, should you close the net? Jesus bu stared blankly at this scene, and pointed to Shanks and Ben Beckman, who had known this before. You don't tell me. So you're a sniper and I'm the co-captain. Beckman smiled and took the sniper rifle of Jesus Cloth, and shot the enemy who had just exposed half of his forehead. Chapter 570 in the middle of the game. In this period, it is not only Loya who is making trouble at sea. The New World looks very peaceful on the surface, and no one can make much waves when the 4 emperors sit here, but what if it is another 4 emperors? As early as 2 months ago, Shanks received reports of Guy's extra appearance. At that time, he didn't think much about it, only when Guy recovered from his injuries and finally came out to play. But it wasn't until half a month ago that he received a notice from Mahawk. The Shichibukai who was beheaded by Loya on Cake Island, Edward Wable, who called himself Whitebeard too, has been removed from his name. Analu was also expelled from the world government for capturing the Golden City, Burin Tezolo. 2 consecutive Chiwahai have been removed from the list, and the world government will definitely consider new candidates. And the notice Mahawk received came from the world government. They had already confirmed the candidate for the new Shichibukai, but the news was not made public. This is a very unreasonable thing. The significance of the existence of Chiwahai is to use their deterrent power on the sea to contain this era of great pirates. Therefore, every Chiwahai, whether it is delisted or established, must be advertised in the name of the world government. After all, no one knows that you are Chiwahai, so what's the value of that? However, this incident happened so unreasonably. The new Chiwahai has been confirmed, but no notice has been issued. It is conceivable that, as a pirate, Shichibukai itself may not have the face to ask the world government to conceal information for it. Only the world government has another purpose, so it is required that this matter not be made public. As for notifying the other Chiwahai separately, this is still the meaning of the new Chiwahai himself. Blackbeard, Marshall D. Teach. The D family. Yuhifa, Shanks is the same as Loya. No matter how coincidence it seems, he still connects the two things. So long before his Red Falls approached Whitebeard's realm, he sent his rookie rockstar to deliver letters and phone bugs to Whitebeard. Whether the Whitebeard pirates are confident or arrogant is another matter. Now the other party is looking for something extraordinary. In case Guy Duo and Tiki really join forces, whether it is Whitebeard or Yuhifa, Ant or Loya, they will all be within each other's hunting range. Even go a step further. They want to overthrow the world government and rule the world. Whitebeard also understands the truth that lips are dead and teeth are cold, especially Tiki is likely to use Guy's power to kill him as an obstacle. Even if he doesn't think about himself, he has to think about his sons. However, all of this is just Shanks' speculation, so Whitebeard didn't fully believe it. Because Gulala, Ace is my son, Yuhi-haired brat. You said that Tiki captured Ace and handed it over to the Navy, so he took the position of Shichibukai. Are you kidding me? Therefore, Shanks used himself as bait to prove his guess. As expected. Seizing the chance that he was alone, Guy had his men launch a raid. If it's all coincidence, it's going too far, Dad. On the Moby Dick, Marco hung up the phone bug and turned to look at the tall old man sitting on the chair over there. Shanks never hides himself. Known as the most domineering man, he is always in a forward-looking posture, so it is not difficult to get his information. But the problem lies with the beast pirates who are now attacking Shanks. With that number of enemies, it's hard to believe that they came here on a whim. Only with premeditated preparations can such a sufficient number of subordinates be gathered. In Whitebeard's realm, as the masters, they didn't even know about this matter, and the taste of this is very obvious. Obviously, a guy who was very familiar with the Whitebeard pirates told Guy a lot of the defense loopholes in their domain. With the help of these loopholes, Hong Jinjin was able to carry the soldiers one by one into Whitebeard's field, thus completing such an incredible sneak attack. Tiki, this Baga's son. Edward Newgate, the old man known as the strongest in the world, has an undisguised tiredness in his eyes at the moment. Half opening his eyes, Whitebeard took a deep breath and said to Marco, whether Ace was really caught or not, now many guys are making trouble on my site. This is a fact. So, Marco, Joe's. I'm here, Daddy. Are you going to go to war, Daddy? Looking at the two sons in front of him, Whitebeard grinned, drive them out of Lao Tzu's waters. In other words, the opponent's target is not Whitebeard, but Yuhifa, Shanks, who wants to meet Whitebeard. Yes, that's right. It was the first time that the undead soldier on the phone worm had spoken to a big man like Loya, and he was a little too excited. Now the Red Firth is on fire in many places, and if they don't get out as soon as possible, they will most likely be dragged to death by each other. Well, got it. You guys continue to monitor and keep your communications connected. Yes, Lord Loya. Throwing the phone bug back to the dragon boat, Robin asked, if Shanks died, it would be more troublesome than if Charlotte Lingling died. Wouldn't you help him? Charlotte Lingling's previous world can be said to be deeply rooted, and every country in the New World is more or less related to it. So Loya did not kill her immediately, but engraved despair in every pirate's heart with a destructive attitude. But Charlotte Lingling is nothing compared to Shanks. After all, in addition to the name of the four emperors, Shanks was also a crew member on Roger's ship. An existence who knows the truth and has reached the end. If he dies, for the secrets that may be left, no one in this sea can be alone. Compared with One Piece, Charlotte Lingling's relationship network is really nothing. But after listening to Robin's words, Loya looked at her a little funny. Do I have ashes on my face? Why are you looking at me like that? Don't underestimate any of the four emperors, Robin. Loya sat cross-legged on the back of the ice wolf and explained with a smile, as long as Guy doesn't make a move, Shanks will never die. Break through or annihilate the enemy at most. It's going to be a huge loss. I think this time Guy's purpose is to let Shanks lose. Oh, what good is that for him? And he chose to do it in Whitebeard's realm. Apart from angering two New World emperors at the same time, this victory is meaningless at all, right? Then Robin groaned inwardly, although it was not a meaningful thing to anger Whitebeard and Yuhi at the same time. That's exactly what we all want to know except him. If my estimates are correct. At this moment, an undead soldier ran up to the deck, holding a phone bug that kept calling Blue Blue. Lord Loya, the call from the Navy ahead. Hey, say Sao 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 is here, don't you think it's coming? Chapter 571 Passing Navy and Loa. No, I refuse. Facing Lieutenant General He's request, Loya had a smile on the corner of his mouth and bluntly chose to refuse. The content of the deal was to arrive in El Baf with the Navy. If you insist on leaving, leave me alone. Lieutenant General Crane's request is well-founded, and it seems that there is no leakage. Now that Guy Duo's subordinates are in full swing, Kim Jong and Shanks are in full swing. Of course, as the Navy, they have good reasons to take a look at this kind of major event. Even if you can't eliminate any of them, it's still possible to catch a few people. The combat power of the two generals was on board, which gave Lieutenant General Crane full confidence. But in this way, their route will be changed, and no one knows how many days will be delayed in the middle. Because of the previous transaction between the two parties, General Crane asked Loya to go to the battlefield with them. However, Loya refused very decisively. A change of course is a deal breaker. Sengoku has said that we are now hostile to each other, so you wouldn't be naive enough to think that I can fully trust you, Lieutenant General Crane. Similarly, Loya's words are well-founded and cannot be refuted. As for dispersing the combat power and letting Kisurugi or Fujitora rush to the battlefield alone, this idea is even more unrealistic. Okay, I will continue to Elbaf as agreed. But at the same time, I will also inform Sengoku to arrange another person to deal with this matter. When that time comes, you should make your subordinates pay attention not to accidentally hurt them. Don't worry, as long as they don't come within 1,000 meters of Turtle Island, they generally won't die. Humph, I don't want to make extra trouble. So, a strange scene appeared. Under the gazes of a group of large and small forces, the fleet led by the highest combat power of the Navy headquarters, Admiral Kizaru, the chief staff officer of the Navy headquarters, Crane, plus the monsters from the world conscription, Fujitora. What kind of fleet looks like? I didn't even see it, and swaggered along the sideline of Whitebeard's field. This news not only confused the others, but even Shanks and others who were fighting at the moment. When they just got the news, they made a bold guess. Guy not only teamed up with Blackbeard, but also teamed up with the Navy, trying to catch them all. After all, the timing of the appearance of the Navy is a bit too coincidental. No matter how you look at it, it is all to pick up the leak. Shanks was even ready to give up the plan, let Marco go back first, and led his men to break out of the siege. The results of it. They made a circle a few hundred miles away. Obviously they could see the flames and sword energy in the sky, but they pretended not to see anything and drove all the way. At this moment, Shanksen, Flood Disaster, Jin, who is secretly controlling the troops, both have this kind of expression, Sigma, hollow square. Then the two sides continued to engage in battle. It's just that after that, no matter who it is, they secretly paid some attention to the direction the Navy was passing by. You must know that the Navy believes in wolf pack tactics. A creature like a wolf will not let go of its wounded prey. However, as the first team leader of the Whitebeard Pirates, Phoenix, Marco, and the third team leader, Diamond, Yoja joined the battle, they attacked the rear of the troops led by Jinsuo, and the battle was inevitable towards Shank. They leaned over. How many people? What if the battle command is the best in the world? This world is a world where individual combat power can break through the sky. Just to deal with Shank's people in his boat, Jin sent out tens of thousands of troops. Almost twice as many as Guy's subordinates in the known information. This can only be done by relying on crowd tactics to consume the opponent's physical strength. Now with the new force from Whitebeard, the advantage of the sea of tactics cannot be brought into play. With the help of gunpowder smoke and artillery fire, a passage was opened up, and the Red Foss seized the opportunity, like a water dragon, and slammed out. Beside Marco and Jaz's big ship, Shanks jumped on the bow and shouted loudly to the enemies not far away, Kim. Come out and face me. Bumble, you're so lucky, Shanks. Suddenly, a very harsh shrill laughter came from the opposing fleet. But the source of the sound was not the flagship belonging to Jin, but an ordinary attacking boat far away from it. At this moment, a short man with a hunched body came out of the cabin. He was wearing a brown robe and had a long skull crutch in his hand. Because of the kabuto hat on the robe, no one could see his face clearly, but the familiar aura told Shanks that this person was one of the double disasters under the 100 Beasts, Gaido, Flood Disaster, Jin. It's not luck. Next time you attack me, don't let your captain do too many tricks. That's right, Mr. Guy has indeed been a little more active these days. Jin Shen nodded in agreement, and then said, it doesn't matter, anyway, my goal has been achieved. For what purpose? Do you think I'll tell you? Oh, it looks like you need to be arrested and questioned. After being attacked and beaten for so long, Shanks became a little angry no matter how good he was. The rest of the people behind them also prepared for battle. Grumbling, it's terrifying. Yuhi is so angry. I'm not scary at all, what's really scary is the sword in my hand. When the words fell, Shanks rolled over domineeringly, the bow of the dragon head under his feet was trampled and cracked, and a sword light suddenly shot at Jin's position. But at this moment, a large shadow suddenly appeared under the sea. The range of that shadow is so huge, from the sea at the end of the opposing fleet to the front of Shanks and others, it is all wrapped in it. Then, boom, scoff. A huge Yuhi-colored goldfish rushed out of the sea, opened its huge mouth, and swallowed most of the fleet on the opposite side. At the same time, Shanks' sword energy just arrived, leaving a long bloodstain from the left eye to the gills on the goldfish's face. Blood spurted out, like rain on the boat of the three. With just a bang, the goldfish wailed and fell into the sea, disappearing quickly. The blood of the huge goldfish mixed with the seawater hit his face, and the smell was extremely foul, but Shanks couldn't care to wipe it clean. He hurriedly used observation hockey to find the other party's trace, but unfortunately Jin's breath had disappeared at this moment. Moreover, he also took away the vast majority of his own members, leaving only a few peripheral stragglers on the battlefield. Damn, he escaped. Jesus Cloth took aim several times with a sniper scope, and finally determined that the other party was gone. They can't get away, but I recommend not chasing them. Beckman took a breath, then tore off half of his t-shirt as a rag to wipe the blood from his face. This amount of bleeding, even the Island Eater can't last long. Then why don't you go after it? Jesus asked suspiciously. Idiot, what if a trap is prepared for the face? I don't want to go through that kind of suffocating battle again. That's right. In the future, there will be time to find Guy to settle accounts. Shanks nodded, agreeing with Beckman's statement, then he turned to look at Jose and Marco, and said, "This time thank you so much, I want to meet your dad." Captain, the Turtle Island Dragon ship is found in the southeast. Suddenly, an exclamation interrupted their chat. Shanks twitched the corners of his mouth, took the binoculars, and looked in the direction of the lookout finger. Sure enough, on the arc where the sea and the sky meet, a dragon boat that is half the size of the Moby Dick is slowly moving forward. Even if the appearance is not very clear, a white line left after the dragon boat travels is still very dazzling in the sun. Only one guy goes out to sea to leave such traces. Ice Dragon, Loya, has he left Turtle Island again? Chapter 572 Traitor. As the fourth emperor, Shanks said the word, again, in a surprised tone, which is enough to prove the horror that Loya left in the hearts of everyone. After betraying the Navy, every time he went to sea in the New World, he did a major event that shocked the world. From the initial rivalry against the high-level Navy and leaving a piece of ice, to the day of catastrophe destroying all countries alone, engraving despair into the hearts of pirates, which one is not a major event that drives the sea. Although the last time he returned to Cake Island, he only had a symbolic fight with Charlotte Lingling, but in terms of probability, this guy went to sea twice out of the 3 times to do things. So this time, there is a 2/3 probability that he will go out to do something again. Thinking of this, Shanks couldn't help feeling a little bit of Kiba pain. It was because of the last time he went to sea, obviously because he had broken a hand. Mahawk, who no longer wanted to fight with him, pulled him into a fight for the first time ever. Facing the resentful Mahawk, Shanks was at a loss, and was beaten by the opponent with swordsmanship, and suffered a few small losses. Although Mahawk explained the reason later, Shanks also knew that he was abrupt, but it was not a good memory after all. Cut. After one gold came another Loya. Do you really think our Whitebeard pirates are easy to bully? Marco spit badly, with blue flames wrapped around his body, and was about to fly over to teach the other party a lesson. But at this moment, the lookout continued. No. Their direction is the direction the Navy left half a day ago, and the target is not here. Nani? Marco was stunned, grabbed the telescope in Shanks' hand, and looked forward. Sure enough, the dragon boat moved forward at a slow speed, without even looking at them, and broke through the waves in the direction the Navy left. Did they want to sneak attack on the Navy team just now? Is there anything worthy of Ice Dragon's shot on it? No, I received news from spies earlier. It was a fleet led by Admiral Kizaru, and it went to sea directly from the Holy Land, Mary Joa, and did not escort any important supplies. Why is that? Could it be? Recalling the ambush that shocked the world half a year ago, the 3 of them looked terrified and made up a terrifying picture. Half a year ago, although Loya was victorious, he was not unscathed. According to Mahawk, before he was accidentally injured by Loya's move, a terrifying light Jinchuriki column once descended on the battlefield. The light Jinchuriki column that penetrates the sky, and the sky is directly connected between the sea and the sky. Even the inhabitants of the Yuhi soil can see it clearly. Combined with the information of the high-level Navy, it can be known that it was the attack of the great general. After the attack, the fighting ceased for several minutes. Then came the huge ice field that blocked the mouth of the New World, and the terrifying white light Jinchuriki column that annihilated everything. During the few minutes, it was confirmed in later intelligence that Loya was injured by Kyabu at that time and fell into the sea without a sound. Because Garp, who was the only one who wasn't a fruit power, was severely injured, Sengoku and the others couldn't do anything about Loa, who fell into the sea. As a result, a few minutes later, relying on his resilience second only to Guy, Loya reappeared and defeated Sengoku and others in one fell swoop. Thinking of this information, Marco raised his hand and whispered, "That guy, shouldn't he be looking for revenge from Kizaru? I remember that he was beaten by Kizaru in the graduation assessment a few years ago. Seriously injured. Ghost knows." Shanks took a deep breath, feeling that today's experience was really getting better and better. "We don't have time to control them now. Since the target is not us, let's catch these guys first." "Ah, yes." Marco nodded, half squinting his eyes, scanning a circle of stragglers floating on the sea. With so many artificial animal fruit abilities, Dad must be very curious about how Guy Duo collected it. Passing by Whitebeard's field, Robin stood up and glanced at it and asked, "Sure enough, the battle is over." To be able to control a creature like the Island Eater to evacuate, the beast pirates have a lot of hidden means. Loya said, "And that, flood disaster, gold. In the past 20 years, there have been few shots, and I've only seen his information. I didn't expect that he could drag a 4 emperors into the quagmire with simple crowd tactics. This method is really powerful. Actually, you're not bad. I always feel that no matter what they do, they haven't escaped your eyes." Robin put his eyes on Loya. If he meant something said, "Now can you tell me what your previous arrangement meant?" "Ah, what's the arrangement?" "HMPH. Stop pretending to be old lady." Robin snorted coldly and said, "I think it's better for us to sleep in separate rooms before we get married. Please give me a chance to correct it." Without further ado, Loya immediately confessed. "What? You suspect there are moles on Turtle Island? How is that possible?" "Shish, be quiet." On the back of the ice wolf, Loya hugged Robin and covered her mouth with the other hand. Glancing at him helplessly, Robin broke free and said, "But how is this possible? The island is basically full of undead, and undead soldiers are absolutely impossible to betray. Could it be that? Is it your comrades in the elite camp?" "I don't know about that. Anyway, everything that happened these days is really tricky. Coincidence happens a lot more, so it's not a coincidence." Loya shrugged and said, "But it's okay, didn't I let Ulysses go back quietly? Do you want him to investigate secretly? Because everyone thought he went to sea with us, so there should be no such character on Turtle Island now, and no one will beware of him." "You're so cute. Come on, give me a kiss. Don't make trouble." Pushing aside Loya's big face that can withstand cannonballs, Robin frowned. "Is there anything wrong with what I said? I told you to give me a kiss. Look at my mood." "Okay." Loya looked like she had succeeded in her trick, and replied with a smile, "If it's just investigation, wouldn't it be enough for me to ward Rockdale alone? And now the undead soldiers on the island add up. There are 35,000 people, don't the spies know everyone? So I sent Ulysses back. Ready for war." Suddenly, Robin's pupils tightened. "While we are leaving, someone is going to harm Turtle Island. Why don't you go back quickly? That is the foundation of everything you do." "Just kidding, what's better than your wife's safety? What if the other party kidnaps you while I'm going back? Then I'm more passive." This sentence made Robin warm in her heart, but she still insisted on letting Loya go back quickly. In this regard, Loya said with a smile, "You know, why did I become a dragon on the day of the Alabasta incident? I know that I can't control it, and I know that I can only live as a dragon in my life. Down." "Why?" After finding a comfortable position to lie down, Loya looked up at the sky and murmured, "Because I was no match for Ulysses at all. Apart from fighting to the death, I had no choice." Chapter 573 Turtle Island Sneak Attack. Wise General, Buddha Sengoku, Beasts, Gaido, Blackbeard, Marshall D. Teach, Whitebeard, Edward Newgate, Uhifa, Shanks, Ice Dragon, Loya. These world-famous names have long been connected by an invisible chain. A long time ago, early arrival was not yet famous in Loya, as early as the day he came to this world. Dreams can not only give birth to hope, but also give birth to something called ambition. Blackbeard, Titch is a very ambitious guy, so the rivalry between him and Loya is already doomed. In Shanks' intelligence, Guy suspected that he was teaming up with Titch, and wanted to eliminate the current 4 emperors one by one, especially Whitebeard and Edward Newgate. In Loya's intelligence, he didn't know how much Guy might have teamed up with Tiki, but he simply felt that the series of things he went to see happened too coincidentally, so he came to the conclusion that this was a tactic. Someone behind the speculation against Turtle Island. However, in reality, both of them were only half right. People's ambitions are endless, especially some guys who have reached the sky in one step, gained powerful power, and are expected to win the world. Greed, or fear, let him set his goal on Turtle Island, on the only foundation of Loya. Just 2 days after Loya and the others went to sea, several warships drove out from the direction of Holy Land, Mary Joa. When passing through the huge ice field along the way, there was a guy who could never be here on the deck of the naval warship. One of the 4 emperors, there are many, 100 beasts, Guy. Looking at the endless ice field in front of him, Guy snorted coldly. I haven't seen him for a few years, this guy's freezing ability is really terrifying. So what? I didn't attack him directly, but attacked his base. Beside Guy, Blackbeard, Marshall D. Teach took a gulp of rum and wiped his mouth. Remember, we only have 2 hours. Once the other party finds out that Turtle Island has been attacked, at his speed, how can he come back in 2 hours? Humph. I don't need you to teach me how to do it. I don't know why, but now Guy's IQ seems to be much more normal, and there is no longer a situation where he can't control his emotions in the past. I'd rather he hurry back. In this way, Kim and Betsy have a chance to catch the woman. Then turn, Ice Dragon, Loya into my power. Create an army of undead for me. It's our strength, guys. Tiki corrected the statement of the violent coon in front of him without fear. Humph, then I must find a chance to kill you. G-u la la la. I also want to try the taste of the blood of the 4 emperors. In the distance, the outline of Turtle Island is already very clear. After all, through the sea where the ice area is located, the first island is the Turtle Island of Loya. Without going to talk to Blackbeard again, Guy's whole body was full of black energy, and then he stepped on the Navy warship to the side. Bang! The deck in place suddenly exploded, and when he turned back, Guy had mostly disappeared in place. Little ones, the war is on. Oh! On Turtle Island, the soldiers never thought that one day they would be attacked. When seeing a dark shadow falling from the sky, the first reaction of the undead soldier in charge of the watchtower was, "What is that? A big weird bird. Kill." Suddenly, there was a loud scream of killing from the sea in the distance. Guys dressed as pirates sat on the assault boats that were put down on the Navy warships and charged towards Turtle Island. This time the soldiers came back to their senses and sounded the dusty alarm bell. Boom. Enemy attack. Boom. Enemy attack. Boom. The enemy. With a snap, the undead soldier who just shouted a word was slapped on the head by Guy. One more slap. The moment it touched the slap, the head splashed out in a muddy form. However, even though he lost his head, the remaining body still acted instinctively, took out a long sword from his waist, and the headless soldier aimed at Guy and stabbed him. Ding! The sword collided with Guy's stomach, but only penetrated the opponent's thin layer of clothing. Facing Guy's more terrifying defenses than before, this attack didn't even have the qualifications to tickle him. Undead. This is the warrior I want. Guy gave a heartfelt admiration, then raised his hand and continued to slap it. Slap. The soldier instantly turned into a puddle of flesh, and finally could not get up again. But at this moment, as if some switch was turned on, the undead soldiers who were a little flustered on the whole island stopped neatly, their eyes flashing with blood. An inexplicable sense of danger enveloped the island, causing the island turtle to silently retract its limbs and head. That's right. The island tortoise is not a type of sea turtle. Its size is comparable to a small island, but it can still retract its head into the turtle shell. K-Roctal felt the restless feeling in his body, took a deep breath, and put the undead sword on his shoulders, which didn't fit very well. War frenzy has been launched. As soon as he walked out of the door, K-Roctal was startled by the dense number of assault boats on the sea. At the same time, Simon happened to come to his room and immediately said, "The attacker is the traitor on Guido and Whitebeard, Marshal Teach. I have informed Loya, as long as it lasts for 2 hours." 4 emperors. Rockdale took a deep breath, his eyes quickly filled with Yuhi light. As the Grand Commander of the Undead Army, a Death Knight empowered by Loya alone, Krokdar could have controlled himself not to be eroded by the frenzy of war. But at this moment, if the opponent is the 4 emperors, there is no need for him to keep everything. With a hint of madness on his calm face, Krokdar said with the corners of his mouth twitched. 2 hours. You hurry up and take shelter. I promise to complete the mission. Woo, woo, woo. The harsh sound of an air defense siren echoed on Turtle Island, making everyone's heart tighten. Blackbeard, who had just landed on Turtle Island, looked up and asked inexplicably, "What's the situation? What did you touch?" "I don't know." Guy frowned as well, looking at Turtle Island, which was instantly quiet. It was obvious that the island was still noisy when they attacked, but after landing, the noisy scene just now could not be seen. "And I feel it, the breath of those living people is slowly disappearing." "What?" Rustling. Suddenly, there was a rustling sound in the forest, as if a huge creature was crawling. But soon, they knew that it was not a creature, but a group of undead army like a sea of waves. The faces of this group of undead are more ferocious, the Kiva teeth are more sharp and slender, exposing the outside of the lips, the nails have evolved into sharp claws, and a light stroke will leave a deep scratch on the trunk of a tree. The twisted and rotten mouths spit out a strong plague of poisonous gas. After seeing the living people, it suddenly rushed towards them like a wild beast. "Damn, didn't you say they retained their sanity?" Grabbing Van Orca by the collar, Blackbeard yelled at him, "What are these monsters now?" "No, shouldn't it?" Before landing just now, the undead on this island were still patrolling in an orderly manner. "Don't worry about it so much, we are here to destroy it anyway." Guy shouted angrily, rushed into the corpse tied like a meat grinder, raised his fist and smashed it, and the island turtles were overwhelmed and let out a groan. "Hurry up and find something. That's the beginning of our great career." "Understood." Blackbeard nodded and led a few cadres all the way to kill him. Chapter 574 Young Conspiracy. Guy and Blackbeard invaded Turtle Island. The situation is urgent. Hearing the news brought by the messenger, Robin was shocked and looked at Loya in disbelief. "You guessed it." "No, that's not the point." Guy Duo, one of the 4 dignified emperors, actually joined forces with the traitor, Blackbeard, Tiki on the Whitebeard ship. And they also attacked Turtle Island together. Aren't they afraid of revenge? With Roha's combat power there, even Shanks has to admit that Roha now has the terrifying strength to kill Whitebeard, the strongest in the world. Otherwise, I won't ask Mahawk to go out and let Loya give him face. Guy was indeed invincible one-on-one before, but it has been proved in Alabasta that Loya's means can restrain him. Just relying on a traitor Tiki, how could they have the confidence to bear Loya's revenge? Moreover, Guy is the real 4 emperors. Now that he is teaming up with Blackbeard, isn't he ashamed? Isn't this just a rank lower than Whitebeard for no reason? For this question, Loya smiled slightly. Don't underestimate Blackbeard. With Guy's personality, being able to agree to join forces with him proves that this person is extraordinary. As for my revenge, then it's even easier. As long as I don't take action, it's alright. Would you be that kind of person? Robin instantly looked at Loya with a look of contempt, but still said nervously, I think you should go back quickly. With the speed you burst out, you can go back in 2 hours at most. Ha ha ha, didn't I fall for them? Huh. Playing with the phone bug in his hand, Loya pointed to Robin, what do you think is the reason why I can't shoot? After making this clear, Robin immediately understood, frowned and said, you said before that they wanted to kidnap me to threaten you. But, who? Of course it's the guy who was defeated and retreated before. Flood disaster, gold. Robin sucked in a breath and immediately linked all the known information. Then she looked in the direction of the Navy, thoughtfully. This is a conspiracy of Yuhi Guago. If Loya doesn't go back, the turtle island that has been built so hard will be destroyed. If he goes back, Jin, who doesn't know where he is, will take Robin away. Even if Loya takes Robin with him, he can't avoid the ending of Turtle Island's destruction if he can't burst into full speed. What an intriguing plot. Loya couldn't help applauding, expressing deep admiration for the enemy's combined strategy. How about, take Crane and Kazuna as hostages and force them to stop? He knew his own physique and could never bear the flying speed that Roha burst out with all his strength. Robin thought hard for a long time and finally came up with a seemingly feasible plan. However, this plan was immediately rejected by Loya, because... Who do you think provided the warship that Gaido and Tich were on? Of course it's the Navy. Otherwise, how could they have come all the way from the Yuhi mainland? Could it still be Fishman Island? Whether it's Fishman Island or Mary Joa, if you want to reach Turtle Island, it will take at least a day at the speed of a warship. We just set off 2 days ago. Loya looked at Yuhi said in the direction of the mainland, in this day's time, isn't it easy to grab a few warships with the skills of Guy and Tick? Could it be that? Hearing this, Robin's heart suddenly tightened, and he said in disbelief, they treat the soldiers as abandoned sons. That's not clear, but no matter what the outcome is, I'll go to Sengoku and question it after I'm done. He will definitely be able to take out a corpse and denounce Guy's atrocities. Speaking of which, Loya looked at Robin, asked again, so, do you think it makes sense to kidnap that old woman? Sengoku isn't a kainu, but it's not Aoki either. The more foresighted and intelligent people are, the more ruthless they are, because the more they are like that, the less they will be impatient. Not to mention a Crane, even if it is himself, thousands of ordinary people, he can sacrifice to achieve his goals. The temporary peace between the two sides came from the strong pressure of the Antonio family. If nothing else, the people behind Sengoku who were engaged in the wind and rain probably did not run away. Isn't it normal to sacrifice some soldiers at such a momentous moment in the transfer of rights and interests? Seeing Robin's worried look, Loya comforted her. Relax, didn't I let Ulysses go back? And Turtle Island is a base that I have armed for many years, and it is not so easy to break. I hope so. Robin was not as optimistic as Loya, and then, her face suddenly turned cold. Damn Navy. To let the 4 emperors and Chiwahai join forces to attack Turtle Island, the old lady couldn't the garden for the wedding be kept. Loya. Forget it, you should continue to be nervous. Nani, Ice Dragon, Loya didn't come back. Holding the phone bug, Guy glared at him, and said viciously to the person on the phone bug, is he really not afraid that Lao Su will destroy this island? I guess that's it. In fact, this is a gamble. It can be seen from his previous style that, Ice Dragon, Loya is very emotional, even if his foundation is destroyed, he will not leaving his wife alone. Flood, Jin's voice was sharp and piercing, almost the same type as Pika who died under Tony's hands. However, his figure is much thinner than Pika, and it will not have the effect of making people laugh. Instead, it adds a bit of gloomy temperament to him. If that's the case, then I'll destroy this island. Steal the text of the landmark history. Guy snorted and hung up the phone. Then he raised his head, looked at his soldiers who were being beaten by the mad undead, and shouted impatiently, who dares to back away? I will kill him first. When he said this, Guy pulled over a soldier who was trembling beside him and didn't dare to step forward, broke it in two and threw it out. The blood of the companions not only stimulated the undead frenzy, but also inspired the fear of death for the pirates. It's a death both horizontally and vertically. It's better to die under the claws of the enemy than to be killed by guy who is afraid of fighting and fleeing. Ultimate fear made them lose their minds, and there was a roar that was not human-like on the front line. One by one pirates rushed up like crazy, miraculously curbing the undead frenzy. Humph! A bunch of useless trash. The expression was cold, as if the pirates who were fighting one by one were not living people, but just numbers. Guy put his eyes on the mechanical castle at the top of Turtle Island, with a hideous smile on the corner of his mouth. Have the cadres all escaped? The dragon boats are all under my watch. There are no boats. Do you think you can escape? Boom. With black energy surging all over his body, Guy stomped more and disappeared in place in an instant. Bang! With a loud bang, the stone road in front of the mechanical castle cracked instantly. A large pit with a diameter of more than 10 meters appeared in the center of the field, and then a strong and terrifying man emerged from it. Before he could take a closer look at Loya's castle, Guy suddenly raised his eyelids and waved his palms in front of his eyes. Ding! Boom! It was a black Sasori sting, but at the moment the Sasori sting was disconnected from it, and Guy was holding it in his hand. Then he pushed hard, and the broken metal was smashed into a ball. The squeezed venom rolled down Guy's palm, dripping on the ground and corroding small pits with white smoke. Look who this is. Isn't this K-Rochdal who escaped from the New World after being defeated by Whitebeard? Looking at the figure not far away, Guy smiled coldly. I heard that you were killed by Loya. Accepted as a confidant, and given the resounding title of Plague Lord. Now it seems that it is still a waste. When did beasts Guy learn to talk nonsense too? K-Rochdal held the great sword of the undead in his left hand, and a mass of green sand poured out from his right wrist, gradually forming the appearance of a hand. Ha, ha. Holding the sword in both hands, K-Rochdal said with an indifferent expression, if I am a waste, isn't the jack I killed even worse than a waste? And your beast pirates, isn't it a waste shelter? So, is it just a name? You can try it and you will understand. Looking at Krokdar's eyes that radiated Yuhi like the undead, Guy frowned a lot, then rushed forward abruptly. Pretend to be a ghost. Watch Lao Su beat you to a pulp. Chapter 575 Adventures in Blackbeard's Vault. Please subscribe for tickets. So fast. The mouth is open to ridicule, but tactically, it should be paid attention to, just like the warrior has to open a shield to block after throwing an axe after opening a monster. K-Rochdal had already known Akatsuki Guy's abilities, so he kept his mind a little more, but at this moment, facing the real attack from Guy, he still found that he was careless. Guy's speed is simply scary. Obviously it was just a simple movement, and a circular air explosion exploded in place. With this terrifying speed blessing, Guy raised his fist and slammed it down at K-Rochdal's head. But you don't even want to use domineering. How dare you? With a gloomy gaze, K-Rochdal turned his body into elements in an instant, and strips of yellow sand tentacles spread out from all over his body, wrapping around Guy's arms. Bang! Just one punch. Rochdal's whole body exploded into yellow sand. Elementalization can indeed make him unscathed in attacks without domineering, but Guy's fists are too powerful, directly blowing his elemental body. Looking at the sand in front of him, Guy was a little stunned. How is that possible? Are you not an undead? In front of Lord Loya, nothing is impossible. The yellow sand wrapped around Guy Duo's arms gradually increased, and K-Rochdal's face appeared in front of Guy Duo, and he opened his mouth face to face and spat out a swarm of plague bugs exuding a rancid smell. Oops, poisonous. The power of the plague swarm is obvious to all, and even a lot of guys cannot be completely immune. Immediately, he only felt a turbulence in his head, and then he was slashed by a large sword on his neck and flew out like a baseball. K-Rochdal is worthy of his status as a great commander. Hit the 4 emperors face to face. This record is worth boasting about no matter where it is placed. However, K-Roctal, who took the lead, was not too happy, and suddenly pressed his hand to the ground. Erosion cycle. The moment Guy flew out, he felt that his plague germs were disappearing at an unreasonable speed. Guy's body is like a big melting pot, which will instantly burn the germs that invade the body to death. And the slash just now did not achieve any effect. It was like slashing on a sea-floor stone, but it shook him so much that he couldn't control his arm. Sure enough, almost at the moment when the erosion cycle just created a desert, Guy Duo suddenly appeared behind K-Roctal and punched him again. This time, it was a domineering attack. Boom! A bright yellow flower more than 10 meters high exploded in the temporary desert, and the entire Turtle Island was shaking. Looking at the dark bloodstains dripping into the sand in front of him, Guy stood proudly in the desert and roared, "Get out of here! Rock doll! Crown of the king!" Loya spent countless funds and tens of thousands of labor. It took half a year to build a magnificent treasure house that could not be broken. When Titch led several officers of the Blackbeard pirates to kill all the guards and stepped into this treasure house, he finally knew why Loya had such great confidence in it. In the short 3 minutes just now, they experienced fire, flooding, electric shock, arrow rain, and a terrifying wave of lava. If it wasn't for Blackbeard to lead the team this time, it would be impossible for any guy behind him to travel such a long distance safely. The ability of the dark fruit allows Tiki to absorb all dangerous things into the darkness through contact, so even if they have touched several organs, a group of people is still very clean. But even Blackbeard had to be vigilant when stepping into this treasure trove. Because this is a small space that is not enough for 3 people to walk side by side, the walls above and below the feet and in all directions are inlaid with sea-floor stone flakes. Once the flakes are attached to the body, the fruit's ability cannot be exerted, and if they happen to trigger some mechanism, even if you don't die, you have to peel off. The design is simply inhumane. Knowing that there are many organs here, so at the beginning, their plan was for Guy to come here to hunt for treasures. After all, Guy's defenses are invincible. Just those attacks, except for the magma, it is estimated that other traps are not even qualified to tickle him. However, Tiki is not at ease. Although he is ambitious, he is not arrogant enough to think that now he will be the opponent of Guy who has been famous for many years, unless he gets Whitebeard's shocking fruit according to the plan. So now I can only choose to continue to forbear. The dark fruit brought him infinite possibilities, but also made him lose some of his advantages. If nothing else, just doubling the pain suffered by that one is enough to make people with unstable minds give up this fruit. The situation is stronger than the people. In addition, Guy was not afraid to fight with Titch, so he agreed to hand over this task to them. Destroying the foundation of Loya is just incidental. Their real goal is the 2 historical texts of road signs stored in the deepest part of the King's Crown that Loya seized from the Big Mom pirate group. These people dared to do something to Turtle Island, and naturally they wouldn't care about the horror of the disaster day. In order to become the Pirate King, the 2 of them can still bear the risk. Relying on Titch's ability again to avoid the solid iron ball falling from the sky, fighting champion, Bashes gasped heavily against the wall, unable to stand up for a long time. He was the first to bear the brunt of the iron ball when the iron ball suddenly fell from an organ that was not known how many meters high. Fortunately, Tiki activated his fruit ability in time, which prevented the ending of being smashed to the ground by the iron ball. After taking a few breaths, Bashes stood up and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. I now finally know why the outside of this place is as big as a castle, but the passage inside is only so small. As he spoke, Bassos raised his head with lingering fear, feeling that any slate could be lifted, and then smashed down a solid iron ball. PFF ha ha ha. Don't worry, Bassos, there will be no problem with me. Titch laughed loudly and took a sip of rum. Then, when he put down the wine bottle, he burped full of alcohol, his body trembled, and he accidentally knocked the wine bottle against the wall. Rumbling. The entire King's Crown suddenly began to tremble, like an earthquake, making the floor underfoot as soft as cotton candy. Titch stepped on his feet and stood firm, and said suspiciously, "Nani?" Are there two organs in the same place? Captain, the walls are moving. Devil Sheriff, Lafayette pointed at the wall that began to move along the lines and shouted nervously. Bosses, hold on. Understood. Seeing that the situation was not right, Bossos didn't care about the injury, and spread his hands to the left and right walls, trying to use his brute force to resist the squeeze from both sides. After waiting for a few seconds, without waiting for the expected pressure, Bossos asked strangely, how do I feel that this thing is not squeezing in the middle? It is. Before he finished speaking, the slate under Bossos' feet was low and high, turned over at once, pushed him into a small space vacated by the wall, and seeing that Bashes was stuck in the wall and biting Kobo with bloodshot eyes, Tick said clearly, as each passage rotatable. In terms of the firmness of Halu stone, we seem to be trapped here. The floor is still squeezing in hard, trying to become a new wall, and the part behind the original floor is still a hard sea-floor stone wall. Rotate back and forth together to form a block the box, which locked the Blackbeards and his party in it. The only part of the passage is the gap that Bossos used his body to prop up, but for the few people present, the gap that the child can't get through, there is no difference. Biting Kobo, a wisp of blood flowed down Boss's ears and eye sockets. Captain, I'm going to, can't stand it. Chapter 576 G-Rock Doll vs Guy and more. Wild Snake. In the desert, 8 huge snakes of Arsenopyre rose from the ground and rushed towards Guy Duo. Not to mention the plague attached to the wild snake, just if the snake with the thick bucket collided with it, the ordinary powerhouse would have to be smashed to pieces. But Guy Duo is not in this ranks, whether it is plague or shock, he will accept it all, because... Bang! Obviously only one punch was thrown, and all 8 sand snakes exploded on the spot. Standing in the green arseno sand flying in the sky, Guy spit out a mouthful of saliva mixed with sand in disdain, and the slight numbness in his mouth disappeared instantly. The power of the fruit and the power of the plague have merged. You really opened my eyes. But do you think I can't do anything about you by hiding like this? The battlefield between the two has turned into a green desert, a forbidden area of life with a deadly poison. Ordinary people don't talk about fighting, they just stand here, and they will become a mummified corpse in a short time. You don't have to wait for K-Rockdal to shoot, this is just the ability that comes with this desert. But now, K-Rockdar is hiding in the desert, relying on the advantage of the venue to avoid Guy's frontal attack. He and Guy have fought head-to-head just now. Although the opponent's strength is not as strong as Loya's, it is equally threatening to him. With just one punch, the Halushi body armor was cracked. With 2 punches, it directly blew it up and broke his spine, Jinchuriki column. Fortunately, K-Rockdal is now an undead, otherwise the injury just now would be enough to make him incapacitated and let the other side slaughter. At this moment, K-Rockdar decomposed into sand and hid in the desert, absorbing the power of the great sword of the undead to restore his mutilated body. Is it just that the skin is a little dry? Sure enough, you can't do it without that trick. The desolate snake developed by the power of the plague power and the rustling fruit can not only poison people, but also suck it into a mummified corpse. And Guy who resisted this trick mostly only had mild dry skin, not to mention drying, even dehydration is far worse. Feeling Guy's constant patrolling eyes, K-Rockdal's expression was indifferent, and he put his hand into his stomach. There. It was this tiny movement that made Guy discover his tracks more than a second. Just listening to the bang, a green flower exploded in the desert, and Guy, who arrived in a flash, aimed at K-Rockdal, and punched it down. Bang! What is this? Through contact, Guy knew a lot that he didn't hit K-Rockdal, but he was like hitting a tough rice cake, draining most of his strength. The smoke dissipated, and behind the billowing green sand, a fist of sand the size of a small building was blocking in front of Guy's iron fist, and ripples like water spread on the fist, but if you look closely, you will find that those are countless fine powders. The sand is rolling slowly. At this moment, another fist of the same size was condensed from endless sand, and it was an uppercut towards Guy. Bang! This heavy blow also didn't hurt Guy much, but made him fall to the ground with an unstable center of gravity, rolling all the way to the edge of the desert. Looking up at the half-length sand giant in the middle of the desert, Guy frowned. What the hell is this? The giant of sand, the source of water. I was locked in a coffin and soaked at the bottom of the sea for more than half a year. Every day I could only hear the sound of the water flowing outside. Madness, despair, anger, and mourning, the insights this experience brought me, you can't understand. Living people, even more so. Rockdale's face gradually took shape on the giant's face, and he grinned at Guy who was half kneeling on the ground. Lord Loya told me about your weaknesses, there are many guys. Rockdale's voice was very hoarse and dull, like a growl from hell. However, in the next moment, two fists that were completely disproportionate in size collided, interrupting Rockdale's words. There was a crackling explosion in the air, showing how hard the two attacked. And it's not over yet. After a little collision, the feeling of hitting the cotton came again, which made Guy feel so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. However, his expression did not change, and he smiled coldly. Oh, no, my weakness. Are you sure? Bang! The hands and feet exerted force together, and the huge fist several meters high collapsed instantly. The giant of sand, which had just condensed half of its body, was suddenly shaken back, and only a pool of sand was left on both wrists. Then don't put your eyes on me, idiot. All of a sudden, Guy let out a roar, and he rushed towards the giant's left shoulder like a cannonball, raising his fist and smashing it. Guy's punch speed can't reach the point where Garp compresses the air to orange Yuhi. After all, his name is 100 Beasts, instead of Iron Fist, but even so, Guy's punches are terrifying. Asphyxia. In just an instant, the left shoulder of the giant of sand exploded like fireworks. Compared with the fists controlled by the mind, the shoulders of the giants undoubtedly couldn't achieve that kind of powerful release force. Looking at me, I can perceive your presence. Without looking at me, I can get close to your back. I don't even know that, and you say that you have found my weakness. What a joke. Boom, scoff. It was only then that a cloud of smoke suddenly exploded on the spot, and the sound was transmitted. The violently blasted sand was compressed by the powerful fist, using itself as the boat in the air as the water flow, scattering and splashing in all directions. The dense voices are connected together, sharp and harsh. However, just when Guy thought he had knocked out Rockdale with one punch, the other party's voice was still so calm. Where are you fighting, Guy Moore? What? Boom. The giant has completely stood up from the desert, and on the huge green body, clumps of sand keep spreading, mending the gap on the shoulder. Two jet-black lines spread from the giant's eyes to the left and right to the back of his head, where they formed a mysterious mark. If Ulysses were here, they would know that it was a rune representing the power of the plague. Just like the rune on his chest representing the power of blood. You can tell where I am by looking at you. That's not necessarily true, there are so many guys. At this point, small bumps appeared on the giant of the sand, densely packed with hundreds of thousands. Thinking that the other party was going to launch something, Guy subconsciously prepared for defense, but that's eyes. Taking a deep breath, Guy stared at Kiba a lot, finally feeling a hint of threat. He would never remember this feeling wrong, the feeling of being watched by a poisonous snake and facing a life-threatening feeling at all times. But then, he found the place where the viper was hiding, pulled it out and gnawed the viper's head with Kiba teeth. But now he can't, because this dangerous gaze comes from all directions. I saw the green giant on the opposite side, a pair of empty eyes staring at Guy Duo. No matter how he felt, those are the eyes of Rockdale. You still have a chance, Guy. Now, guess where I am. Is it all? No, pure elementalization can't allow a natural fruit person to have such a huge body. He is still controlling the surrounding sand. But, what is it? In other words, his ability to use his gaze was completely restrained by Rockdale at this moment. Whether it's disappearing or searching, it doesn't make any sense at all. Did you use this fake eye to deceive my perception just now? That's right, but unfortunately there is no reward. Humph. Since that's the case, I'll smash all the puppets you're hiding in to see where you can escape. As soon as the words fell, Guy resolutely bullied himself up. His name is indeed not Iron Fist, but his name is 100 Beasts, which means that he cannot use common sense to measure quality at all. The agility of a leopard, the eyesight of an eagle, the tenacity of a rhinoceros, the strange power of an elephant, and all kinds of beasts that humans fear come together to form the most terrifying monster in the world. Beasts, Guy. Break it and recast it again. Are you sure you want to compete with the undead for physical strength? Rockdale sneered and rushed forward without fear. Chapter 577 The Traitor Who Surfaced. Please subscribe for tickets. In the Crown of Kings, Blackbeard and his party have been trapped here for more than 10 minutes. They couldn't help but watch Bassos being crushed to death by the wall because of lack of physical strength, so they all worked together to resist the compression of the wall, and Bassos took the opportunity to escape. Afterwards, the walls really closed, turning the place into an airtight secret room and shutting a group of people inside. In order to save oxygen, a group of people didn't even dare to light candles. They sat on the ground blindly and tried to breathe calmly. Captain. Shut up, Shoss, talk less, save oxygen. Oh, but Captain. I said shut up. But, Captain. You're not finished. Titch stood up impatiently, reached out in the direction the voice came from, and touched Boss's fluffy beard. Pulling hard, Bassos cried out in pain. The mechanism here is very complicated. It will take time for our rescuers to unravel. I don't want to suffocate and die before that. Understand? Understood, Bashes said with difficulty, pulling his beard, and then continued, but Captain. There seems to be movement outside. Nani? Titch released his hand and leaned his ear against the wall. Even though he was very uncomfortable because of Hai Lushi, he still tried his best to search for the slightest movement. As expected. Although the movement was very weak, and it sounded like there were several layers of walls, but in this quiet room where only the breathing of a group of people could be heard, the sound coming through the walls was still very clear. Recalling the information he got before, Titch laughed loudly, PFF ha ha ha. You're right, that guy really came to save us. Oh, is that our inside line? Lafayette rubbed his waist and stood up, holding his cane in both hands. Take care of your looks, Captain. After all, it's our savior who will be here later. PFF'd, haha, you're still so strict, Lafayette. As Titch washed the pinch of beard that had just emerged from his chin with strong rum, the wall moved slowly in the direction they came from. Soon, a ray of light squeezed in from the gap, and everyone smelled the fresh air blowing in their faces, and their spirits were lifted. Click. As if the sound of bones twisting came, the wall that was spinning stopped abruptly. Hey, what happened? Are there any enemies outside? Tiki immediately shouted nervously, don't be too cruel. I couldn't see any hope just now, but now I see hope and I can't get out. The people outside didn't answer, and a group of people could only hear rapid gasps. After a long time, when Titch was considering whether to think of a way to break the door violently, a man's breathless voice sounded. Help, help, me, I'm twisting my waist. The mechanism of this wall has been shut down. You can turn it over with a twist. Come here. As soon as the voice fell, the person inside had a black line on his forehead. Lafayette asked at the right time, Captain, have you heard from that person before? What is the strength of the informant who is connecting with us? Ah, I've heard of it. A researcher with no strength. Hey. For scientific researchers who have no power, it is not easy to move a huge square stone, even if there is a pulley mechanism at the bottom of the stone. Several tons of weight are there, and it can't even provide the most basic driving force, so don't even think about moving it. However, for the fighting champion, Bassos, this weight is still far from being used for exercise, let alone waste. With a light drink, the entire seafloor stone wall rolled to the side, revealing the passage that was buckled behind the previous wall. Then, Tichkai finally saw his savior. A thin man with frog glasses and light brown hair. This person is the genius scientist and mechanical master, Ratchet, who has been trusted by Loya for many years and has handed over the defense construction of the entire Turtle Island to him. At this moment, Ratchet was lying on the ground, supporting his waist with one hand and clutching the wall with the other, with a very painful expression. "Help, help, my waist. Titch." Because of the narrow passage, they did not bring the troublesome ship Dr. Q. Fortunately, Lafayette used to be a police officer, and he had brutally killed so many people, and he knew the structure of the human body very well. He simply pressed Ratchet's waist with a cane, and with a scream, Ratchet's slightly displaced bones immediately returned to their place. Patting the dust, Ratchet stood up from the ground, flipped the switch on the glasses, and wiped the lenses clean with a small wiper. Then he let out a long sigh of relief and said to the group of people in front of him, "It's great, it's all right. Otherwise, I don't know what the result will be if I can't complete the task." "So, you broke back all the stones that blocked the way before?" "Ah, yeah. Benevolent. PFF, ha ha ha." Titch opened his thick arms and hugged Ratchet in his arms, until he couldn't breathe. With just a click, Ratchet flipped Byakugan and passed out. "I really can't take it anymore. Wake him up quickly, Captain. I don't know how many traps there are." After another flutter, Ratchet woke up faintly and asked, "Just what happened?" "Nothing. You're so tired that you passed out." Lafayette's face, so pale that it didn't look like a living person, came up to Ratchet, frightened. He shuddered. Fortunately, Ratchet has lived on Turtle Island for many years, and has seen real dead bones and ghosts, and quickly recovered. "By the way, let's move fast. There are many organs in here. Even if I close the ban, the rest will still work." Ratchet stood up, looked around for a group of people, and then found the information that said the guy. "Blackbeard, Captain Titch, right. I'll show you the way. The treasure trove is at the very core." "What? Why are you in such a hurry, my benefactor?" Titch grabbed Ratchet and took a sip of wine. "This treasure house was designed by you. Isn't it easy to crack the mechanism? And it's only a big castle. It'll be done in 10 minutes if you're here." "That's right, but," after thinking about it, Ratchet gave up his defense and sighed. "You'll know when you come with me. By the way, can someone move all the stones in front of you back? Be sure to pay attention to the angle, 3 left and 1 right, and then repeat the cycle. If it is wrong, it will trigger the mechanism." Quote. "Leave it to me." Basas moved his shoulders and headed forward. 10 minutes later, a group of people squatted on the only intact narrow stone slab in the passage, looking at the magma passage with no head left and right and even turning in front of them. They were all silent. Squatting on Bash's back, Ratchet muttered in a low voice, "That's why I said to hurry up." Titch tugged with his hand, pulled the coat ignited by the magma in front of him, and slapped the flame on it with his hand a few times. "Hey, benefactor. How many such organs are there in front of you?" "About 120, right. That's not counting the road sections that have to wait for the trigger time to expire." Titch was stunned for a while, and it took a long time to say a word. Are you crazy? Isn't this a treasure trove? Treasure house? Whose organization would be so complicated to design? Wouldn't it be nice to just engage in some traps? Can't get in by yourself. Ah. You can't blame me. That monster didn't plan to let people in, even he himself. After hearing this, Titch and his party turned even darker. After a while, Lafayette broke the silence. "If we can start over, we should really let Guy come to find more." "But how can there be regret medicine in the world?" Chapter 578 arrived at the treasure house. Just when Blackbeard and his party were trapped in the crown of the king, the new world, where Loya was. Blue blue blue. Mosamoxie, Lieutenant General Crane. What's the matter? I received news just now that Guy Duo and Blackbeard killed our warship and attacked your Turtle Island. Wouldn't you be unaware? Intercept. This word is used well. Anyway, just throw any dirty water on the pirates. The Navy will always be so clean. Nodding, Loya answered bluntly, "Of course, I knew it half an hour ago." "Then why are you still behind us? Your base camp was attacked by the enemy, won't you go back and take a look?" Seeing this, Lieutenant General Crane said in surprise. Could it be, in order to protect Robin, Loya is really willing to give up Turtle Island? The Crane narrowed his eyes. Although this result was acceptable, it did not achieve the most perfect effect. But she would not show it, and continued to say in surprise, "The enemy is one of the 4 emperors, the 100 Beasts guy. There is also a traitor on the Whitebeard ship, whose strength is also extraordinary. Are you not in a hurry?" "Why should I be in such a hurry, Lieutenant General Crane?" Loya smiled slightly, took the juice that Robin handed him, and said while drinking, "It's just one more guy and one Blackbeard, I don't think the harvest is big enough. If any other enemies jump out now, then it can be regarded as a great harvest." Quote. "What do you mean?" Suddenly, General Crane had a bad feeling in his heart. In an instant, Loya's information went through in his mind, and when he recalled Loya's performance in the Navy, Admiral Crane took a deep breath. Lieutenant Admiral of the Navy Headquarters, Ice Dragon, Loya, a terrifying person who can be considered without omission, but must solve all problems with violence. This is the information that Akainu seized when he cleared the pirates, and it was the evaluation of Loya that the captain of the pirate group wrote down in the diary. Just because they were afraid of Loya, they had to change their course, which led them to be caught by the Navy. "You mean, Turtle Island is a trap? Are you waiting for the enemy to jump into it on purpose?" "Sarah, who knows about this?" Loya sucked the juice, and slapped Erlang's leg leisurely. "If the prey will bite through the steel, break out of the cage, and change from prey to hunter, who can say that? What about Ching?" But what?" Suddenly, Loya's voice became gloomy, and his eyes also turned into vertical pupils unique to cold-blooded animals, "But I always feel that compared to killing prey, breaking the legs of beasts, let it run away when it sees you, and even run away with its own clan. That is the proof that the hunter is truly powerful. Run away after seeing you. How dare he say that? What reason does he have to say this? That's the 4 emperors, guys. There is also a powerful dark fruit ability, Blackbeard, Marshal D. teach. Just relying on the protective measures built on Turtle Island in the past few years, and relying on the predecessor Shichibukai, K. Rochdal who came back to life. Is it possible? What if Loya guessed their plan in advance? Now Turtle Island has no strength enough to compete with it, and it is only a matter of time before it is destroyed. Why can he say this? Hanging up the phone, Lieutenant General he sat in the room with his brows furrowed. "No, I have to inform Sengoku to get everything done, and I can't let Loya find an excuse to attack the Navy." Thinking of this, General Crane took out another phone bug and was about to make a call. Dong dong dong. "Who is it?" "It's me, Lieutenant General Crane. Just now, Marshal Sengoku called to inquire about the situation and said you didn't answer." The voice outside was Fujitora's. After hearing his words, Lieutenant General Crane remembered that it was true just now. Someone called. It's just that she was immersed in the shock that Loya brought her, and did not return to her senses. Immediately, Suru said to Fujitora, "Understood, I'll go back to him. Then, the old man will say goodbye first." Fujitora responded with a smile, turned and walked towards his room. He lowered his head so that people couldn't see his face clearly. But if anyone passed him at this time, a creaking sound would be heard. It was the sound of the wooden scabbard being clenched tightly, a little overwhelmed. After 9 deaths, many obstacles, and after 90, 81 and 81 difficulties, the Blackbeard pirates finally reached the core of the King's Crown and stood in front of the gate of the treasure house. Likewise, Ratchet took a specially made key from a box he carried with him and opened the door in front of a group of people. At this moment, Titch behind him said such a sentence. "I don't think this treasure trove is very safe. If it's not exposed, you can continue to make it more complicated." Behind Titch, the expressions of a group of people are like this, equals. Bet 5 Bailey, this guy will not come in if he is killed. Even if Loya has collected other historical texts of road signs. Everything is so familiar. Except, Ratchet didn't accidentally drop the key on the ground, and after opening the door, he stood at the door waiting for others. This key is quite unique. It looks frozen. Yes, because this keyhole requires a necessary low temperature to pass the verification. If the temperature is not up to standard, we will be directly trapped here. The surrounding walls are full of 2-meter thick sea towers, even if the temperature is not up to standard. Even that monster can't be smashed and escaped. Hearing this, the talkative Lafayette's face darkened, and he only felt his sphincter muscles tighten for a while. Looking at the treasure house in front of you and then starving to death or suffocating to death. It's really a cannibal island. For living people, this place is simply too unfriendly. Why so much nonsense? Let me see where the treasure we're looking for is. Titch interrupted the communication between the two, standing at the door of the treasure house, looking at the darkened room in front of him. Where is it? Where is it? My little one. Large objects like the historical text of road signs are placed at the very bottom. If they don't put them in this way, he will be very angry. Hearing that monster said, this is a symptom called obsessive-compulsive disorder. Ratchet said as he flipped a switch on the wall. This treasure house was already pitch black. Last time, because he took a step forward and turned on the light source in advance, Roja was only frightened by the pile of treasures in front of him when he came in. Titch and others were no exception. When the ice crystals on both sides of the wall shone brightly, even he, who was used to seeing the big world on the Whitebeard ship, had a momentary stagnation of breathing. Because all this in front of you. It's really spectacular. This is. Lafayette pointed to the treasure in the pile of gold coins and said in surprise, the national treasure of the Violet Kingdom of the West Sea, the King's scepter and crown. It's here. Wow, what is this? What a big gem. This gun turned out to be Vegapunk's laser weapon. Several crew members of the Blackbeard pirates looked at the treasures in surprise and fell in love with those treasures. Finally, they turned their eyes neatly and looked at Blackbeard with burning eyes. Captain, take everything here. Chapter 579 Ulysses vs Blackbeard Pirates. Affirmative use of interrogative sentences. Well, that's a bad demonstration. Of course, my great cause needs them. Blackbeard suffocated for a while, then smiled greedily, black smoke billowing from his body. Then, is it better to find out what you want before discussing this? Yes, the historical text of the road sign, this is the most important. Tiki diligently turned his eyes away, suppressed the greed in his heart, and said happily, no wonder the agencies outside are so set up. Complicated, it turns out that everything is worth it. My historical text, my one piece, where are you? Ah, found it. At the end of the treasure house, 2 pieces of Yuhi's historical text stood there quietly. The moss and scratches on the surface tell the vicissitudes of life, and the mysterious square text brings people awe of the unknown. Titch's eyes flashed with frenzy, and he never looked at the treasures around him, and walked straight towards the 2 boulders. This is the text of the road sign history. This is the key to becoming One Piece. Puff, ha 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 ha. After more than 20 years on the white-bearded ship Jonin, it took another half a year to avoid Ace's pursuit. It was even more dangerous to conspire with the 2 tigers in the Navy and Guy. After so much effort, finally, the dream beckoned to him. Come on, my darlings. I'll take you out and let you soak up the sun. Greedy sucks the smell on the stone, it's the smell of a dream. Black smoke billowed around Tiki, and like a pair of big demonic hands, he rushed towards the stone. But at this moment, a figure that should not have appeared here at all, or even said that it was impossible to appear in Turtle Island, slowly walked out from behind the historical text. Look who this is. What an ugly big man. Ulysses was holding Yuhi tea, his cane and sword in the creaking nest. Blowing on the hot tea, Ulysses took a light sip while holding the handle of the teacup with 2 fingers. Then he tilted his head and asked, "Mr. Ratchet, I don't know. Do you know them?" Fresh. Blood Lord. Ulysses. Ratchet swallowed hard and shouted in horror, "Why are you here? You are not with that did the monsters go to sea together." Quote. That monster. Ulysses narrowed his eyes slightly, and a fierce aura suddenly rose. Titch and the others only saw a bloody Yuhi figure floating in the air, and then they realized that Ratchet had stopped breathing. And he, Ulysses, it's still in place, not moving at all. Even that cup of Yuhi tea did not splash a single drop of ripples. As if he hadn't done anything, Ulysses raised his eyelids. "I don't even call my master, and I still use those filthy words to refer to. Go on the road with peace of mind, your mother, you're my subordinates, everything you have, I will bring you slowly." Blood Lord. Are you the Blood Lord, Ulysses, one of the two great leaders of the Undead Legion alongside K-Rockthal? Just now, a benefactor kept shouting, but now Titch didn't show the slightest emotion about Ratchet's death. Looking at Yuhi's undead, who was a little thin but with impeccable proportions, Tiki smiled slightly. "I advise you to honestly give me the treasure, otherwise." Otherwise what? Ulysses calmly raised his head, glanced at him, and then quickly turned his eyes away. My God, there are such ugly living people in the world, it's really unsightly. Titch. Click. A string called Reason snapped, and Titch raised his hand, with thick black smoke wrapped around his fist. "It seems that you will not be honest and obedient, that's just right, let's see the power of the dark fruit." Dark Cave. The enemy is very difficult, but the dream is ahead, so Tiki did not keep his hand this time, and once he made a shot, it was one of his strongest moves, the dark hole. I saw that he pressed his hand to the ground, and the endless darkness like running water quickly filled the entire room. The shelves storing the treasures were immediately crushed, and the treasures on them fell, drowning in darkness little by little. Including those two historical texts of road signs that cover Yuhi. But the last dark fruit capable person died in my hands, and you still use the dark fruit to deal with me. Should I say you are stupid? Or should I say that the ignorant is fearless? Stepping lightly on the darkness, Ulysses didn't even shake his hand holding Yuhi. Seeing this, Titch suddenly widened his eyes. Impossible, why didn't you get sucked in by the darkness? In this small space, the dark cave is definitely a powerful attack that cannot be defended. No matter what it is, it will be drowned in the darkness. Generally it is true. But this scene. It's true that your development of the dark fruit is not comparable to the guy the first killed, but you all made the same mistake. Clang. Before he finished speaking, Jin Tai hummed. Blood sickle sickle weasel. Titch only saw a flash of Yuhi light in front of his eyes, and then there was a deep pain in his chest. Ah, it hurts. It hurts. Tiki's chest was opened with a huge hole by the Yuhi light, and even through the film that protects the internal organs, you can see the constantly wriggling internal organs. Che, the body is quite hard. But next time I won't be so lucky. Damn it. Dark water. A huge suction force came out from Teach's palm, and Ulysses stammered, struggling to resist the opponent's fruit ability. Seeing this, Titch laughed loudly. It's useless. You are the undead that Loya resurrected with his fruit power, you can't resist my power. Oh, that's right. Ulysses lowered the tip of his sword, a slight smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. If you can't resist it, then don't resist it. As he spoke, Ulysses jumped up slightly, and was immediately pulled over by the strong gravity of the dark water. No, not only the pulling, but also the additional strength of his own jumping. What? Fast. Lafayette and the others on the side couldn't see how Ulysses made his move at all, and the speed of the ultimate was like a ghost. After Ulysses finished speaking, they approached Titch subconsciously, but the red Yuhi light appeared again, and several blood flowers bloomed in the air instantly. Laugh. Wow. Vash's rush is the fastest, so he also has the strongest attack. Half of the palm swirled in midair, then rolled into the darkness on the ground. Captain, stop the attack. We're going to be sucked in too. Ah, see, he has a sea tower on him. Run away. Hearing the shouting, Titch resisted the pain and stopped the release of the dark acupuncture point. The rest didn't understand what was going on just now, but he saw clearly. Just when he thought that Ulysses was completely unable to resist his fruit ability, he was pulled, and Ulysses pressed his chest against his hand, and then Halu, the power of the stone directly nullifies the dark fruit. And Ulysses, who broke free, shot in an instant, skillfully used the inertia just now, and cut out a circle of sword light around him. Titch's eyes were gloomy, and he seemed to feel that he and others had miscalculated. Their attention was too much on Loya, so that they knew very little about the two commanders of the undead army who were second only to Loya on Turtle Island. K-Rockville also had a solo battle and killed Tianyasha and Drought, Jack's record, and the Ulysses in front of them. Except for the information about the old Kiba, they didn't know anything at all. Chapter 580 Soldiers never tire of cheating. As a traveler, the greatest help to Loya is not his own combat power. Although combat power is also very important in this world, compared with the help of intelligence, it is undoubtedly far worse. Titch didn't know anything about Loya, and all he came into contact with were the simple information that was circulated in the world, such as his life and achievements. On the other hand, Loya is different. He has long considered the situation of meeting this careerist, and started the layout early. As the Blood Lord who is second only to Loya in combat power on Turtle Island, Ulysses is the beneficiary of this information. What's more, the dark fruit of the previous generation died in the hands of Ulysses. Put the palm wrapped in dark power on the chest, and after a few breaths, the scar that is enough to kill people can no longer see a trace. As long as it can withstand the doubled pain, this ability to devour all the wounds is simply invincible. Then, a thick black ink suddenly appeared around Titch, and the valuable treasure fragments that had been swallowed before shot out from the inside, and the target pointed directly at Ulysses not far away. The dark fruit lacks effective and simple attack methods. Since Ulysses can avoid being swallowed by the gravity of the dark cave, other methods can also be used. Titch is also helpless. Suck and release. The most basic devouring power of the dark fruit. Looking at the rain of debris coming from the shop, Ulysses did not dodge or evade, and waved a curtain of blood yuhi. It was not a simple energy shield, but a move he developed by combining his understanding of blood power with Loya's magic teaching. Unclean blood shield. Behind the blood shield, Ulysses wore a magic circle emitting yuhi light around his wrist. His hand passed through the center of the magic circle, and then slowly turned. Ding! Bang bang bang! What? Titch, who was about to run away, heard the sound, and when he looked back, he was shocked. I saw that the debris that hit like raindrops, after touching the blood shield, rotated 180 degrees at a more terrifying speed than before, and hit them. Sharp in the air, cutting. Damn! If they continue to run forward, they will definitely be hit hard by the debris storm. Before he could think about it, Titch once again drew out the black curtain and swallowed all the fragments again. The fierce debris storm quickly subsided, but before Tiki could catch his breath, the terrifying red yuhi sword light appeared again, leaving a yuhi-colored light curtain on the retina. This is not a profound move, just pure speed. Approaching an ultimate speed. Crap. The aura of blood suffocating on his face reminded Titch of Ratchet, who died strangely just now. The swallowing and releasing of the dark fruit cannot be used at the same time. At this moment, Titch can only wrap his domineering aura around his body, preparing to reduce his suffering as much as possible. Damage. Seeing that the attack was about to come, suddenly a figure blocked the path of the sword light lacing. Go to sleep. Lafayette held a pocket watch in his hand, holding it up to face the sword light. At the same time, a strange wave emanated from his forehead, making Tiki's eyelids a little heavy. However. Scoff. Bang. Jianying only paused for a moment, and then continued to slash mercilessly. Lafayette's pocket watch split into two instantly, and the whole person was hit hard on the wall outside the gate. Wow. A mouthful of blood spurted out. Half kneeling on the ground, Lafayette raised his head sullenly, and looked at Ulysses with bloodshot eyes in disbelief. How is that possible? My hypnosis failed. Using hypnosis on dead people, you are more stupid than your captain. Ulysses showed a faint smile on the corner of his mouth, and then took a sip of Yuhi tea. Yes. Until now, he hasn't even put down the teacup in his hand. Furthermore, the ability of devil fruits is also graded. High concentration energy can passively resist the invasion of low concentration energy. This is another level of knowledge. To put it simply, you want to hypnotize with your current ability. I'm still hundreds of years too early. After that, Ulysses continued to bully him, as if he wanted to completely kill Lafayette, who had already suffered 2 swords from him. The speed of the ultimate has been seen by everyone present, and the current Lafayette alone cannot escape it. Seeing that the sword light was about to wipe Lafayette's throat, at the critical moment, a dark curtain dragged Lafayette in. Hurry in. This guy knows our weakness. Titch roared, and the leader jumped into the darkness under his feet. But at this moment, another sword light slashed over. Drink. This time the attack was even faster. It seemed that Ulysses knew what Tiki was doing, and he was very anxious to shoot. But he was still a step slower. Zhangguang had just cut the muscles on Tiki's back, and before reaching the bones, Tiki had disappeared into the darkness. When he turned around, the rest of the Blackbeard pirates also jumped into the darkness. For a time, the passage of the Crown of Kings was as quiet as a ghost. If it wasn't for the treasure trove that was destroyed just now behind Ulysses, maybe everyone thought it was just a dream. Dark teleportation, leaving a dark curtain in 2 locations, connecting them through the fruit ability to move across the space. Ulysses knew a lot about Tiki's escape moves. Then there was a smile on the corner of his mouth, and he said if he meant something, but the gravitational force in the dark space is terrible, even for a second, ordinary people will be completely torn apart. If there are wounds on the body, well, presumably the blood on their bodies will come out clean. After a pause, Ulysses walked into the treasury, pressed down on an unremarkable square brick on the wall, and then quickly retreated. Soon, the entire treasury began to tremble. A cloud of hot magma was sprinkled on the ceiling, filling the treasury. Then, with a click, it seemed that something huge was spinning behind the wall, and Ulysses dragged Ratchet's body to open the door and walked in. Pressing the square brick in the same position just now, and glancing at the neat and undamaged treasures inside, Ulysses said into the phone bug's microphone. As expected, they did come to steal the historical text of the road sign. Oh, did they? Did they take it away? Of course. The nobles, acting skills, are all good. The coast on the periphery of Turtle Island is now completely occupied by the undead. Those pirates who thought they could follow Guy to do more business with Blackbeard have now become food for the undead. The pungent bloody smell condensed in the air, let the sea breeze blow, but it did not dissipate a little bit. At this moment, a black curtain spread from behind a large rock, and then the blood-stained Blackbeard pirates' crew members emerged from the curtain. Captain, Lafayette is dead. Bashes hugged Lafayette and shouted loudly. This time he not only attracted Titch's attention, but also attracted the attention of the undead who lost their goals and kept wandering around. Seeing a group of living people in front of them, the fragrant blood on their bodies instantly stimulated them to roar in the sky, and then rushed over desperately. Hurry back. There are warships left over there. Now is not the time to waste time with this group of irrational and crazy undead, Titch shouted, and the dark cave was released again. This time, the scene in the treasury just now did not appear. The roaring undead waved their arms and were submerged in the darkness little by little. Then, Titch carried Van Oka, the weakest physique, while Bashes endured the pain and carried Lafayette, who couldn't even bleed, and ran to the assault boat a few times, heading for the distant warship. At the same time, Titch took out a signal gun from his arms and fired it into the sky without thinking. Boom, boom.